Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere dark, really dark, not metaphorically. We're talking peeling walls, locked iron doors, and the kind of echoes that make your skin crawl. You've decided, for reasons that are still unclear even to you, to spend the night inside a fully operational Victorian insane asylum. Maybe it's for a dare, maybe it's for content, or maybe, just maybe, you actually think you'll survive. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this. Not just physically, but mentally. The whole place is designed to unravel you thread by thread. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It really helps me keep this going. And drop your city and time in the comments. Are you listening from Chicago at 2 AM, a rainy rooftop in Glasgow, a parked car in Tokyo with the windows cracked open? I want to know. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive just as the sky turns a bruised shade of purple, twilight clinging desperately to the edges of the asylum's looming silhouette. It's massive, not in a grand or inspiring way, no. This place is all bulk and shadow, more prison than hospital. The wrought iron gate creaks as it shuts behind you with the kind of finality that makes your lungs tighten. Welcome to the Hollowhurst Lunatic Asylum, established 1856. It smells like mouldy books, ammonia, and something vaguely metallic. Your boots crunch over the gravel, then silence as you step onto a long, damp entry hall with black and white tiles, most of them cracked like teeth. Oil lamps flicker, casting shadows that stretch and twitch in the corners of your vision. The reception area is not what you'd call welcoming. A wooden desk, a bell, a woman in a nurse's uniform that could double as a nun's habit. She stares at you with a mix of boredom and something harder to place. Pity? Amusement? You can't tell. You give your name, though no one asks. A clipboard appears. She clicks a pen with authority and checks something off. You notice there are already tally marks next to a column labelled unconfirmed. Before you can ask, the nurse hands you a bundle of rags, your night clothes, and gestures to the side hallway without a word. You hesitate, but then again you knew what you were signing up for, or thought you did. The corridor to the intake room is lined with stained paintings, portraits of grim-looking doctors and founders with long beards and longer stares. It smells stronger here. Iodine, sweat, and something earthy like rot under floorboards. A massive man with sleeves rolled up, an orderly, you guess, meets you at the next doorway. "Let's get you processed," he grunts. His voice could grind gravel. You're led into a tiled chamber that's uncomfortably sterile and loud even without any sound. A bucket of dark water waits in the corner. You already know it's not for washing hands. Before you can protest, the man orders you to strip, completely. The nurse returns with what looks like powdered chalk and begins rubbing it over your scalp and chest. "Lice control," she mutters. Then, "Open your mouth." You obey, and she sticks a flat wooden tongue depressor inside while inspecting your eyes. No flashlight, just a candle flame flicked quickly toward your pupils. That's all she says. You're handed a cotton smock that's about as comforting as a hospital gown in a meat locker. You get no shoes, just canvas foot wraps and something called sanitary slippers, which might be the saddest footwear you've ever seen. You're then walked, more like herded, through a narrow stairwell toward the ward floors. That's when you first hear it. The sound, a low, continuous moaning that doesn't seem to come from any one direction. Every few seconds, it's interrupted by a sudden scream. Not just someone yelling either. It's sharp, raw, the kind of scream that lives under your skin. This is where the rational part of your brain starts doing that thing, trying to analyse, categorise, protect you. Maybe it's just part of the ambience, part of the experience, like haunted houses, right? But no, there's no break room with teenagers eating vending machine snacks behind a fake wall. This isn't Halloween. These are real people. And you're officially one of them now. The hallway widens into a sort of viewing chamber. Some poor attempt at Victorian architecture trying to seem classy. An old doctor's podium stands at the centre, surrounded by tiered wooden benches. You're told this is where they hold lectures on madness. Sometimes the patients are the exhibits. The phrase object lesson drifts through your mind uninvited. You're assigned a bed in Ward C, which is code for men who are functional enough to walk but not trusted with utensils. The ward is a massive open room lined with iron beds, each separated by tattered curtains stained with unguessable fluids. No privacy, no lamps, just a high barred window that lets in the dying twilight. You're shown to a cot near the corner, beside a man who hasn't blinked once since you got here. He's humming something, over and over. A lullaby, maybe, or a death chant. At the far end of the room, another patient is tapping the same rhythm against the floor with his heel. You realise slowly that several people are doing this. Tiny synchronised habits. Some rock, some hum, some just stare at the wall and whisper like it's whispering back. You sit. The mattress is thin and stuffed with something brittle, like hay or dead moths. The blanket smells like long-dried sweat. There's no pillow, just a rolled-up towel that feels wet. You hear a nurse somewhere down the hall shouting, "Lights out!" But nothing actually changes. It's already dark, just darker now. As you lie back, one fact from your earlier reading pops into your head. The Victorian era believed madness could be caught like a disease. They called it moral contagion. The idea was, being near lunatics could make you one. You scoffed at that before, but now, here, with the breathing, the whispering, the tapping all around you, you're not so sure. What they didn't mention, that same theory is still debated today. Was it nonsense, or did they stumble onto a primitive understanding of psychological influence? Maybe environments really do break people, and this place. It was designed to. Your eyes adjust to the darkness, and for a moment you think you see someone standing at the foot of your bed, not moving, just watching, then gone, or maybe never there. You're not sure anymore. You wake not because of an alarm or sunlight, there is none, but because of something far worse. A shriek, blood-curdling an animal. Him erupts from somewhere in the building. It travels through the stone like a ripple, making your cot tremble beneath you. You sit up with a jolt, disoriented. For a second you think it's morning, but when you glance up at the barred window, the sky's still a deep molasses black. No dawn here, just the echo of someone else's madness, bouncing off the walls like a cruel lullaby. The other patients hardly flinch. A few murmur, one laughs softly. One continues to knock his head against the wall with such robotic rhythm that you wonder if he even heard the scream. You clutch the damp blanket around your shoulders and swing your feet over the edge of the cot, instantly regretting the contact with the stone floor. It's like touching ice. A nurse walks through with a lantern, eyes straight ahead. She's followed by two orderlies dragging a man by his arms. His feet leave red streaks across the tiles. His face is pale, eyes wild, mouth moving in frantic spasms, though no sound comes out anymore. Just the ghost of whatever he screamed minutes ago. You freeze, unwilling to draw attention to yourself. One of the orderlies notices you watching and smirks. "Don't worry, love," he mutters. "His turn's just early." You wonder what that means, but then remember, they cycle patients through therapy first thing in the morning while the fog's still thick and the symptoms sound like something supernatural. Keeps them manageable, apparently. Break the soul early and the body follows quietly. A bell rings, not one you can see, but you hear its clatter from the hallway like a church tower built to summon madness. The beds around you shift. Patients rise, some slowly, some in jerky, marionette-like movements. The orderly from last night returns, arms folded, lips pulled into a tight grin. "Time for breakfast," he says. "Lunatics eat early. Helps with digestion." You shuffle with the others, filing into a long corridor where a line has already formed near the mess hall. The air thickens as you walk, heat and mildew combining into a heavy clinging scent. The line moves in spurts. Some patients mutter, some groan. A few reach out to touch the walls as though expecting them to vanish. The dining room is a grey stone chamber with low ceilings and trestle tables. You're handed a tin bowl with a ladle's worth of something that may once have been oatmeal. It's grey, clotted, and still steaming. You sit next to a woman whose eyes never leave your face. She holds her bowl with both hands but doesn't eat. Her lips tremble like she's silently repeating a prayer, or a curse. Across from you, a man in a tattered smock is already eating. He licks the spoon between bites and mumbles in a sing-song voice. Something about a train, or maybe a tunnel. Then he looks directly at you and says, "I got here on the Lunatic Express." He smiles wide. Several teeth are missing. You nod awkwardly, unsure if you're supposed to laugh. Turns out the Lunatic Express isn't just a metaphor. You remember reading about it, how special trains were used to transport the mentally ill from cities into countryside asylums. They'd load dozens into repurposed cattle cars, close the doors, and hope none escaped. They even had guards, like soldiers escorting prisoners. And the nickname stuck, Lunatic Express. It's almost funny, until you realise the man across from you actually remembers it. He was probably on one. A nurse rings another bell and shouts, "Quiet mouths, quiet minds!" Conversations stop. Bowls are collected, even if they're not empty. One patient whimpers as his breakfast is taken mid-spoon. You're lined up again and marched down a new corridor. This one smells like copper and bleach. You pass a room with no door, only bars. Inside, a man stands motionless in the centre, arms tied in a cross pattern. His eyes are wide open but unfocused. You hear the nurse explain almost casually that he's a recent transfer. "Touched by moonlight," she says, as though that explains everything. Then she taps a clipboard. "Diagnosed on sight, mania and moral insanity." You blink. Diagnosed on sight? That can't be real. But in the Victorian asylum system, it absolutely was. Doctors didn't need tests or interviews. They could simply observe your posture, your eyes, your behaviour, or even your socio-economic status. Women who read too much? Madness. Men who cried after grief? Melancholia. Children who asked too many questions? Early dementia. And if you were poor, well, insanity was practically assumed. There were even cases where women were committed for hysteria, which could include anything from expressing anger to menstruating too loudly. A husband or father could send you away with just a signature. And once inside, good luck getting out. Even today, historians debate how many of these patients were actually mentally ill, and how many were just inconvenient. You keep walking, pretending not to hear the sobbing, coming from the locked rooms. One of the doors creaks open, and a doctor steps out. His white coat is too clean, his shoes too polished. He glances at you briefly, then marks something on a chart. You feel suddenly deeply inspected, not in a caring medical way, but like he's measuring your symptoms against some theory in a textbook. The group halts outside a set of double doors with a brass sign that reads, "Therapy Wing." Your stomach drops. Already. You thought there'd be some buffer, some kind of orientation. But no, you're next. The orderly from earlier calls your name. No last name, just a cold, barking version of your first. You step forward and everyone else steps back. Inside, the walls are tiled floor to ceiling. A row of tubs lines one wall, the kind made of iron and deep as coffins. Steam rises from one, though when you dip your fingers in, it's not warm, it's ice cold. An older nurse stands nearby, arms folded. She nods at your shivering body and mutters, "Cold water cure, clears the mind and slows the blood." Before you can back away, you're grabbed by both arms and lowered into the tub. The cold punches the air out of your lungs. Your legs kick involuntarily, but you're held down, shoulders submerged. The shock is worse than pain. It's a total hijacking of your nervous system. Your teeth chatter so hard you think one might chip. This is therapy, apparently. The Victorians believed that submersion in freezing water would cool the heated brain and calm patients suffering from mania or hysteria. Some patients were left for hours, their limbs going numb, their hearts slowing dangerously. Even now, some scholars argue that the method wasn't entirely useless. Cold therapy can lower agitation. But this is torture. The nurse times you with a pocket watch. When you're finally hauled out, you can't feel your feet. The floor tilts beneath you. You're handed a towel, damp and stiff, and told to dress. The smock clings to your soaked skin like cold meat. You're not sure how much time has passed. Minutes? Hours? The lamps haven't changed. The screams haven't stopped. And your mind, already fraying, starts to ask questions with no answers. You're still shivering when they march you back to the ward. Your hands are numb, fingers stiff and slow to respond. One of the orderlies chuckles as you stumble. "Mind over matter," he says, like your body is betraying you on purpose. You don't answer. You're too focused on moving your legs, one after the other, trying not to collapse onto the damp floor that's already claimed other patients today. You smell it. The stink of urine, sweat, and whatever else they can't clean from these floors. No one looks at you directly. No one offers a word of comfort. This place is a vacuum, sucking out warmth, speech, even muttered sympathy. Back in Ward C, your cot looks exactly the same. Unkempt, uninviting, and utterly incapable of offering rest. You sit, unsure whether you're supposed to lie down or wait for the next bell, the next call, the next torment. Around you, the others are behaving oddly. Well, more oddly than before. One patient has taken to circling the same table endlessly, muttering, she said, over and over like a broken clock. Another is standing in the corner with his back to the room, facing the wall, arms limp at his sides. You don't ask, you don't want to know. The nurse returns with a clipboard and points directly at you. "New case, evaluation pending, doctor wants a look." No choice. You rise again, every muscle protesting, and follow her down another corridor, this one narrower, lined with doors that look less like treatment rooms and more like cages. She leads you into a small office. Simple desk, no windows, just a bookshelf filled with worn volumes and a long leather couch that might once have been read. Sitting behind the desk is a man with the moustache of someone who insists on being right. His nameplate reads Dr. Josiah Marrow, Senior Physician. He gestures for you to sit on the couch and scribble something in a journal before even looking at you. Subject displays classic signs of dissociation, he murmurs aloud. Detached affect, hunched posture, water trauma. Likely melancholic type, possibly degenerative. You blink. You haven't said a word. Dr. Marrow finally meets your eyes, and it's worse than the cold bath. There's no kindness in his gaze, no curiosity, only calculation. Do you often experience sudden shifts in mood, he asks. Any impure thoughts, irregular passions, dream states, nightmares involving the womb? You almost laugh at that last one, thinking it must be a mistranslation. But no, he's serious. The Victorians believed the uterus could migrate throughout the body, causing hysteria. Literal womb wanderings. The term itself, hysteria, comes from the Greek for uterus. You remember that now? When you don't answer quickly enough, he taps his pen harder. Silence implies confirmation. Likely case of hereditary lunacy. Possibly initiated by moral weakness or self-abuse. He writes something else, underlines it. You're not sure whether to protest or just let him finish his little story about your supposed inner demons. And then comes the verdict. Mania with melancholic overlay, moderate confinement recommended, night watch priority. He waves you away like a fly. The nurse escorts you out, saying nothing. Your head spins, not just from the cold or the hunger gnawing at your stomach, but from the sheer absurdity of it all, diagnosed in 10 minutes, without you even speaking. You ask, hesitantly, what your diagnosis means. The nurse snorts. Means you're lucky. No lobotomy. Yet. Then she leans closer and adds, you twitch in your sleep, though. Doctor sees that. You might not be so lucky tomorrow. Back in the ward, someone's crying. Not the loud, wailing kind you've come to expect, but the soft kind, like someone's trying to cry without making noise. It's coming from the next cot over. You glance sideways. The woman who didn't eat her breakfast. She's holding a bundle of cloth like it's a child, rocking it, whispering lullabies. You can't help but ask, what's its name? She turns to you, startled. James, she whispers. He's teething. Then she pulls the cloth closer to her chest. The cloth is just a sheet. There's nothing inside. You look away. That's when you begin to understand how people get trapped here. Not just by the walls and the iron doors, but by the narrative. Once the doctors decide you're mad, every action becomes a symptom. Biang means depression. Silence means detachment. Resistance means delusion. You're not a person here. You're a theory in motion. A live experiment. And the worst part? You're starting to believe it yourself. You lie back down on the cot, muscles twitching, head pounding. You close your eyes, trying to conjure up a memory, anything real. A face, a laugh, the sound of a car, but all you get is the echo of the doctor's voice, calling you melancholic. Defective. A moral risk. You don't even know what that means, but it sticks. Somewhere in the hall, the bells chime again. You count 3 short rings, 1 long. It doesn't follow any clock you recognize. The rhythms here are their own language. Ritualistic. Ominous. Above your cot, a single candle flickers in a mounted holder. You hadn't noticed it before. It's nearly burned out, wax hardened along the wall like a snail trail. You stare at it, transfixed, until it finally gutters. Total darkness. And then the sound returns. The one from earlier. That low moaning. Not quite human. It seems to be moving, room to room, as if searching. Or maybe it's always been there. Beneath the floors, in the walls. You press your hands over your ears, but it doesn't help. It's inside you now. Here's a fringe detail for you. One that doesn't show up in the mainstream history books. Some asylum staff believed in echo spirits, energies left behind by those driven mad within these walls. Not ghosts exactly, more like moods with teeth. And they believed those echoes could infect the sane. They called it resonant lunacy. You don't believe in ghosts, but tonight, you're not so sure. Sleep never really comes. Not the kind you'd recognize anyway. You drift in and out of shallow, fractured moments. Dark blinks where time slips sideways and your body forgets it's supposed to rest. Your limbs twitch. Your jaw clenches on its own. Every sound gets magnified in the blackness. The metal groan of bed springs, the wet coughs, the whispers like wind through paper. You lie curled on the cot, your damp smock clinging to your back, shivering still and trying not to listen. But that sound, that moaning low and endless, won't go away. You swear it moves between the beds, breathing just behind you. When the lamps flicker back on, it's as if someone has kicked the world into gear with a dirty boot. There's no sunrise, no birdsong, just sudden artificial light and the rustle of bodies rising all at once like startled insects. You sit up slowly, every joint aching, eyes gritty. You've made it through your first night, though made it might be generous. You're definitely not the same person who stepped through those gates. Breakfast is another helping of the same colourless slop. Grey, lukewarm, suspiciously lumpy. You take it gratefully. You're starving. You eat quickly, even though the smell reminds you of wet cardboard and sulphur. Across from you, someone stirs their bowl with one finger, then licks it clean. When they notice you watching, they grin and whisper. They don't feed the real ones, just the watchers. You don't ask what that means. You've stopped asking questions altogether. After breakfast, the ward doors swing open and patients begin filing out in different directions, some for treatments, others for occupational therapy. You're told you'll be staying put today for observation, which sounds benign until you realise it means they'll be watching you, cataloguing you, waiting for you to break in a measurable clinical way. You try to pass the time by pacing the room, but every step draws attention. Eyes follow you, paranoid, vacant, gleaming. One man claps softly every time you pass him. Another simply says, tick, 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 like you're a bomb he's waiting to go off. Eventually, a nurse shuffles over and hands you a journal and a blunt pencil. Write down your thoughts, she says flatly. Even the sick ones? Then she leaves without further instruction. You stare at the empty page. Your thoughts? All of them are sick now, even the quiet ones. As you sit with the journal in your lap, a sudden crash explodes from the far end of the ward. Everyone freezes. A man has overturned a bed frame and is howling, face red, veins bulging. Orderlies appear within seconds, efficient and merciless. One restrains him, the other jabs a needle into his neck. You watch as he collapses, body twitching once, twice, and then still. They carry him out like luggage. It shakes you, not just the violence, but how normal it seemed. How no one protested. No one even flinched. Just another moment in the asylum's soundtrack of suffering. And speaking of sound, there's something you notice now, once the chaos dies down. A steady rhythm beneath the surface of the ward. At first you think it's footsteps, but no, it's too soft. It's humming. Dozens of voices, low and tuneless, murmuring the same unmelodic drone. You can't tell where it begins. Maybe it never stops. You ask the nearest patient what they're humming. He looks at you with wide eyes, keeps the dreams away, he says. If you're quiet, they start crawling in. It sounds like nonsense, but later that day, when the ward goes silent, you realise he's right. The quiet isn't peace here. It's danger. It's the breathing room where hallucinations settle in. There's a moment mid-morning when you catch your reflection in a cracked mirror near the wash basin. You look like someone else. Gaunt. Pale. Your eyes have that thin, watery glaze like overcooked eggs. Behind you, you swear you see another face, a dark smear in the mirror's corner, but when you whip around, there's nothing there. Just the same row of patients washing their hands over and over. Then comes the first round of individual observations. You're escorted to a side room lined with stools. Patients sit facing the wall, instructed not to speak unless spoken to. A nurse with hair so tightly braided it looks painful walks behind you all, jotting things down on a clipboard. She notes your posture, your breathing, how often you blink. One man twitches his leg too often. She calls for straps. Another sighs too loudly. He's dismissed for agitation. It's unnerving, this silent judgment. Like being prey in a zoo enclosure you didn't know you were inside. You try to sit still, to breathe evenly, to blend. But the more you try, the more unnatural you feel. Victorian asylums had a term for this kind of observation: moral surveillance. The belief that madness wasn't just medical, it was behavioural. If you sat wrong, thought about it wrong, moved wrong, you could be labelled. And once labelled, Every behaviour was seen through that lens. It's still debated today how much of this insanity was just fear, stress, or nonconformity forced into a diagnosis. But in here, there's no room for debates. Only notes in the margin of a file with your name at the top. After the observation, you're allowed into the recreation room, which is generous considering it's really just an open space with wooden chairs and a single piano missing half its keys. Patients mill around aimlessly, some talking to the walls, others scribbling with chalk on slate boards. You find yourself watching one patient in particular, an older man in a threadbare robe, pacing back and forth while conducting an invisible orchestra. Every now and then he hums a few notes, gestures dramatically, then bows. You inch closer, curious. When he sees you, his eyes light up. "Ah, finally, my oboe," he cries. "You're late for rehearsal." You almost apologise because the sheer conviction in his voice makes it hard not to. He spins and continues conducting. A nurse nearby mutters, "Used to be a music professor. Composed for the Royal Theatre. Brilliant," they said, until the breakdown. It's unclear whether that's true, or if it's just another myth that's grown around this place. But there's something deeply human in the way he moves, like part of him is still conducting some symphony you can't hear. Fringe fact, some Victorian doctors believed that music could either cure or trigger insanity. They wrote entire papers on how violent harmonies could unhinge the mind, while soothing intervals might restore it. Some even ran music therapy sessions where patients were forced to listen to specific scales for hours. The debate still lingers, whether music heals or manipulates the brain. But right now, watching this man wave his arms like he's holding the world together with invisible strings, you're inclined to believe music might be the last sane thing in this place. You sit in a corner and watch the room spiral in its own strange rhythm. The silent girl draws birds with broken crayons. The Queen of England demands toast that never comes. And the man with the phantom orchestra keeps time with your heartbeat. You've lasted this long, but night is coming again, and you already know it's going to be worse. When they announce it's time to return to the ward, no one complains. There's no excitement, but there's a collective understanding, like workers returning to a mine shaft after lunch, or prisoners heading back into the cells before curfew. You follow the others in silence, the shuffle of feet on stone echoing down the corridor like dry leaves blown across concrete. The gas lamps hiss softly as you pass, flickering just enough to cast double shadows. You glance over your shoulder more than once. Nothing's there, and yet the feeling persists. Back in Ward C, the same mildew-soaked air clings to the ceiling. You head to your cot, but find someone else sitting on it. A tall, lanky man with long arms and a sharp, jutting chin. He's whispering to the mattress like it's giving him directions. You pause, unsure whether to speak, but a nurse intervenes before you can. She claps her hands, brisk and loud. "Mr. Childs, that's not your bed. We've talked about this." He stares at her, then at you, then at the bed again, confused. Slowly he rises and steps aside. As he walks away, he leans in and whispers, "She's in the mattress. Don't lie on her too long." You sit anyway, mostly because there's nowhere else to go. A few minutes later, the room settles into its nightly pattern. Some patients wander in slow loops, others crawl into their beds and pull the blankets over their faces. But just across from you, a woman is still sitting upright, staring at the ceiling, motionless. You've seen her before, quiet, always sketching with the broken crayons. No nameplate above her cot, just a faded drawing pinned to the wall behind her bed. A child's rendering of a house with no windows. You watch her for a while, curious. She hasn't spoken once since you arrived. Not to the nurses, not to the other patients, not even to herself. Most people here mumble or hum or scream. Silence, oddly enough, stands out. Eventually you approach, slowly, cautiously, and sit on the edge of a nearby cot. "Hi," you say, your voice hoarse from disuse. "What's your name?" She doesn't turn her head, but after a pause, she reaches under her blanket and pulls out a folded piece of paper. She hands it to you without looking. You unfold it and see a drawing done in black crayon. A figure with long arms and no face, standing in front of the asylum gates. Around it are dozens of tiny stick figures, all with their mouths open in circles. Screaming. You glance at her again, still staring at the ceiling. The nurses call her the Silent Girl, though you doubt that's her real name. She's been here 10 years, someone tells you. brought in as a teenager now. Well, not quite grown, just paused, like something in her froze the moment she entered. She stopped speaking the day she arrived, and she's never made a sound since. No one knows why. You ask another patient if they know her story. He shrugs. Some say she saw something, others say she did something. He leans in. Some think she's not mute, just careful, like if she says the wrong word, it'll come back. You don't ask what it is. You're starting to understand that questions in here aren't currency, they're bait. Still, you find yourself drawn to her. Not in a romantic way, there's no room for that here, but in the way you might cling to a quiet dog during a thunderstorm. Someone who doesn't add to the chaos, someone whose silence feels in a strange way like protection. You return to your cot and glance at the drawing again, the faceless figure. It feels familiar. You've seen something like it in your dreams. Or was it in the hallway last night? Behind the door with the slit for food trays? You're no longer sure what you've imagined and what you've simply forgotten. One historical detail creeps back into your mind as you lie down. Victorian doctors often believed silence was a symptom of advanced insanity. They called it mutism melancholicus, a complete withdrawal from speech due to extreme depression or moral collapse. But others disagreed. Some believed it was a sign of resistance, even strength, a refusal to be drawn into a mad world. Scholars still argue about it. Was silence a symptom or a protest? In the dark, you start to feel the weight of her choice. Maybe silence isn't weakness. Maybe it's armor. As the ward dims into night mode, lamps turned down, doors locked, footsteps receding, you try not to think about the drawing. You fail. The faceless figure stands tall in your imagination, its limbs too long, its presence impossibly still. You wake sometime later to the sensation of breath on your face, not wind, breath, warm, close human. You open your eyes. Nothing's there, no one standing over you, but the mattress feels warmer than it should, like someone was just sitting on it. You sit upright, heart thudding, and glance toward the silent girl. She's awake too, eyes open, head turned toward you for the first time. Her gaze meets yours, steady and unblinking. She nods once, slowly. It's nothing dramatic, but it shakes you more than the scream from the night before. That nod, simple, silent, feels like confirmation. You're not imagining this. Something is happening here. You lie back down, but sleep is impossible. So instead, you stare at the ceiling like she does. You let your breathing slow. You count the distant clangs of keys on the nightstuff's belts. You count the rat scrabblings beneath the floorboards. You count the hours until dawn that may never come. And just before the hallucinations take hold, because they always do in here, you hear it again. Not the moan, not the screams, but the humming. Soft, steady, surrounding you like a lullaby made of dread. Then layered beneath it, another sound. Paper tearing. You glance at the foot of your cot. Another drawing, folded, slipped under your blanket. You don't open it, not yet, you just stare. Because somehow you already know what's on it. Morning doesn't so much arrive as creep in like mildew or guilt. The grey light seeping through the high barred windows isn't bright enough to wake anyone properly, but it triggers something in the staff. The doors slam open, footsteps stamp down the corridor, voices bark orders, trays clatter. You sit up slowly, every joint stiff like you've aged 50 years overnight. Your head throbs and your throat's dry, but you're still clutching the drawing. You unfold it with shaking fingers, knowing it's going to unsettle you, and yes, it does. It's a hallway, unmistakably this one, but twisted. The walls are too narrow, the ceiling too low, and the floor seems to slope upward like the whole building is leaning. In the middle of the hall stands the same faceless figure, arms outstretched, surrounded by doors drawn at impossible angles. Some are upside down, some are floating. One of them is clearly your own, number 23 scratched into the wood with something sharp, and over it all, in red crayon, the words, "Don't open." You fold it again and hide it beneath your mattress. You're not sure why. Maybe to protect her, maybe to protect yourself. Either way, you know that drawing wasn't just for fun. She's trying to tell you something. Maybe she can't speak, but she's not silent. Not really. You're barely out of bed before you're herded into line again, this time toward the bathing ward. You thought the cold water yesterday was a one-time horror. It wasn't. It's part of the routine. This time, though, they're not dunking you. They're making you scrub. You're handed a stiff brush and a lump of grey soap that smells like bleach and rotting pine. No privacy, no instructions, just rows of metal basins and buckets of icy water. The floors are wet, slippery. You try to clean yourself while avoiding the cracked tile mirrors on the wall, each one giving you a slightly different version of your own exhausted face. Next to you, a man scrubs his arms raw. The skin's already broken, pink and peeling. He mutters as he works, out, 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 over and over, as if trying to erase something deeper than dirt. An orderly tells him to stop. He doesn't. The orderly takes his brush and hits him across the back of the neck. He slumps, then resumes scrubbing with his bare hands. You try to make yourself invisible, eyes down, movements slow, till a nurse stops in front of you. She leans close, examining your temples. Haven't shaved them yet, she mutters to herself. Might be necessary if the fever starts. She jots something on a clipboard and moves on. You don't ask what that means, but it lingers. Fever? Shaving? You vaguely remember reading that some doctors believed shaving the head could release bad humours trapped in the skull. Others thought it prevented patients from hiding razors or lice. In practice, it was just another form of humiliation, a way to mark you, control you, and remind you that nothing you had was yours. Not even your hair. By the time you're dry, mostly, and dressed again in the same damp smock, breakfast is over. No gruel for you today. A nurse tells you to wait in the main hall for ward maintenance. You don't know what that means, but you obey. Sitting in a cracked wooden chair, you're startled when a rat darts across the floor in front of you. It pauses, stares at you with weirdly intelligent eyes, then scampers into a hole in the baseboard. You're not even surprised anymore. Rats are just part of the background here. Some patients talk to them. One woman feeds them bits of fabric. She says they whisper secrets at night. You used to think that was a symptom. Now you wonder if she's just listening better than the rest of you. When the maintenance team arrives, it's not what you expect. There's no cleaning, no repairs. Instead, they remove a body. Quietly, efficiently, like taking out the trash. No one says a word. The man's still wearing his slippers. His mouth is slightly open, as if mid-thought. A thin sheet covers his face. He's placed on a wheeled gurney and rolled past the chairs, down a hallway marked storage. You ask a nurse what happened. She doesn't look up from her clipboard. Night tremors. He stopped breathing. Then she adds, "They come in waves. We're due for another." That rattles something in you. Like death here isn't random, it's scheduled. Or maybe contagious. The Victorians were obsessed with classification, and madness, in their mind, was a family tree with deep, tangled roots. They feared it could be passed down, caught, even absorbed through proximity. You sit a little straighter, look around. Who's next? Later, during what they call reflection hour, you're told to remain in your cot and rest your thoughts, which means lying still in complete silence while nurses walk up and down the rows, watching. At first you think it's a break. Then you realise it's worse. The silence makes everything louder. The drip from a pipe above you, the ticking of the warped grandfather clock near the door, the muttering from behind the walls. Yes, behind the walls. You start to notice it more clearly now, faint voices not coming from the ward itself, but from somewhere inside the building. Not muffled conversations or distant cries. This is something else, like whispering directly into your ear through a hole in the plaster. You press your palm against the wall, cold and damp, but there's vibration, faint, rhythmic, like someone tapping or breathing. You think about the drawing again, the hallway, the doors, the red crayon warning, "Don't open." You wonder if the silent girl has ever drawn what's behind the walls, or maybe she's trying to warn you about it. Even now, some historians argue whether these whispers were hallucinations or a byproduct of the asylum's architecture. Old ventilation shafts, interconnected walls, bad acoustics, but patients across multiple institutions describe the same thing. The sensation that the building itself was alive and listening. You believe it. When reflection hour ends, a nurse with red-rimmed eyes and a voice like sandpaper calls your name. You follow her down a new hallway, this one lined with open doorways. Inside each, a metal-framed bed, a bowl of water, and nothing else. No decorations, no books, no colour. These aren't patient rooms, these are observation cells. She leads you into one and points to the cot. You're to remain here for the next 12 hours. Doctor's orders, sleep if you can, speak if you must. The door shuts behind you with a sound that ends conversations. You sit, then lie back. The mattress is harder than the one in Ward C. No blanket, no pillow. The air's damp and the corners of the room are dark, even with the overhead bulb burning weakly. You try to rest, try to clear your mind, but your thoughts echo louder in here. The drawings, the humming, the whispering walls, the patients who stop breathing during the night. And worst of all, you start to remember things you didn't mean to. Things from before the asylum, from the world outside, a voice telling you not to go. A newspaper article with a headline you can't fully recall, something about disappearances, about research into residual hysteria patterns. You close your eyes, you don't want to remember anymore. Because now you're wondering something truly awful. What if you weren't here by mistake? What if you volunteered? Hours pass in the cell, or maybe it's only minutes. Time has grown soft around the edges, like wet paper. You watch the same crack in the ceiling for what feels like forever, tracking it like a map of places you'll never go again. The light above you buzzes intermittently, threatening to go out with each flicker, and the walls, God, the walls, seem to be closer now than when you first came in. Not dramatically, just a few inches. Enough to make you second-guess your spatial awareness. Enough to make you sit up and press your hands against them, needing proof that the room isn't shrinking around you like a coffin with a slow motor. When the door finally creaks open, your eyes sting from the sudden brightness of the hallway beyond. A nurse gestures silently. You follow, grateful just to be walking again. The corridor you're led down is new to you. The paint here is darker, peeling in long strips that resemble decayed wallpaper. At one point you pass a set of double doors chained together with iron loops. Above them, etched into the wooden arch in barely legible script, are the words aqua subita. You file that away. The Victorians loved Latin. Sometimes it helped you. More often it was there to confuse and intimidate. You don't ask questions, you've learned that much. Questions invite suspicion, suspicion invites treatment, and that's exactly what comes next. The nurse takes you to a low-ceilinged room with a wooden chair bolted to the floor. Surrounding the chair is a half-circle of curious contraptions. Metal rods, cranks, cloth straps, leather belts stiff with age. A long wooden box sits under a dusty cloth, and from it rises the faint smell of old blood, vinegar, and scorched linen. An orderly stands waiting, arms folded, face blank. He nods to the nurse, who mutters something about the next session, and leaves. The orderly doesn't explain much, just points to the chair. Sit, he says. You hesitate, then comply. The leather is cold against your legs. The straps go on too quickly for you to process. Wrists, ankles, chest, a chin strap that forces your jaw down slightly, like you're bracing for an invisible punch. Then he opens the wooden box. Inside, neatly coiled, is a bundle of thick copper wire connected to a hand crank generator. A small ceramic control panel sits beside it with two dials, one labelled intensity, the other duration. And suddenly it clicks. This isn't just treatment. This is electrotherapy, or, as it was sometimes called in the Victorian era, galvanic rebalancing. Back then, doctors believed that mental illness stemmed from faulty electrical impulses in the brain. Imbalance, static, internal storms. They didn't know about neurotransmitters, but they had lightning in their hands, and they were eager to try it. The orderly uncoils the wires and dips 2 sponge pads into a bowl of water. You see rust floating on the surface. He presses one pad against each temple. You try to speak, but the chin strap holds you too tight. He cranks the dial. 1 click, 2, 3. The pain doesn't come all at once. It arrives like a breaking tide, slow pressure, then a white-hot bolt of agony straight through your skull. Your vision goes white, then black, then a bright flickering green. You feel your arms pulling against the straps involuntarily. Your feet slam against the footrest. A faint noise escapes your throat, something between a scream and a moan. When it stops, you're not sure how much time has passed. The pads are pulled away, your ears are ringing, your skin is damp with sweat, and your mouth tastes like metal. The orderly checks your pulse, mutters something under his breath, and begins winding the wires back into the box. There's a strange smell now. Burned hair, maybe. Or ozone. Effective, the orderly says finally. Your eyes rolled less than the last one. You're unstrapped and dragged back to your feet. You can't walk without support, so they half carry you back to the ward and drop you onto your cot. The world is pulsing in waves. Your heartbeat and your thoughts no longer moving at the same speed. Your vision is jittery. You close your eyes. Try to find a stable point inside yourself. There isn't one. One historical fact you remember. Some patients underwent electrotherapy multiple times per week, even daily. It was meant to calm hysteria, quell hallucinations, and reset the disturbed mind. But it often resulted in seizures, memory loss, and permanent cognitive damage. Doctors would call this therapeutic regression, A neat way of saying they'd scrambled your mind like eggs. Across the ward, the silent girl is sketching again. She glances at you for only a second before returning to her crayon strokes. You wish you could see what she's drawing, but you're too dizzy to move. All you can do is lie there and let the buzzing in your brain settle, if it ever will. Later, as the pain dulls into a throb, you hear someone laughing, a dry, cackling kind of laugh. You look over and see a patient rocking back and forth, pointing at a spot on the wall. "They're coming," he says, almost cheerfully. "They come for the ones who twitch," he cackles again. "You twitched." You're not in the mood for riddles, but his words won't leave you. The twitch, the wires, the drawing, the way your hand trembles now, even when you try to hold it still. Maybe it's physical, maybe it's residual voltage, or maybe it's what he said. Maybe now that you've twitched, something's been activated, something the staff doesn't talk about. Fringe theory time, there were rumours, quiet, often dismissed, that certain asylums experimented with more than just medical treatments, that some believed in opening mental gates, that certain patients, under extreme duress, could pierce veils between realities. Madness wasn't an illness, it was a key. Modern scholars laugh at it, but some don't. A few whisper that Victorian asylums weren't just about control, they were about access. Through the mind, through suffering. You think about the drawings, the long-armed figure, the doors, and you wonder, how many of those patients weren't just mad? How many were right? The night falls fast, like a trapdoor under your feet. There's no golden hour here, no lazy stretch of orange sunlight through lace curtains, just the slow dimming of gas lamps and a nurse's flat voice announcing final rounds. You're still tasting electricity. Your head sore in places you didn't know had nerves, and your vision keeps shifting, shapes warping at the corners, lights leaving trails. You lie back on your cot and try not to think. Thinking hurts now. Across the ward, someone's singing. It's low and childlike, the kind of tune you'd expect from a carousel, only slower, off-key. And it's not entirely clear which language it's in, if any. A nurse snaps, "Enough!" But the song keeps going for another few seconds before sputtering out into giggles. Somewhere else, someone starts crying. You don't even look. It's become the lullaby of this place. A cocktail of sobs, murmurs, tapping fingers, gnashing teeth. If silence is golden, this asylum is platinum rich. You turn your head and glance toward the silent girl's cot. She's not there. The blankets folded neatly. No crayons, no drawing pinned behind the bed. Just empty space. Your heart stutters. She never leaves during lockdown. You've watched her every night. Her stillness was a constant. A lighthouse in the storm. Now, gone. You rise, slowly feeling your knees wobble under your weight. The staff are distracted tonight. Another patient screaming about fire in the walls, and two nurses are trying to subdue him without full sedation. You seize the moment. You slip out of the ward, heart hammering, barefoot and silent on the cold stone floor. The corridor outside is lit by a single flickering lantern, its glass stained with something brown and crusted. You move quietly, listening for footsteps, whispers, anything. You take the first right, where the hall tilts slightly downward, toward the older part of the asylum. This is where the floor tiles change, becoming warped, uneven. You notice a line of small red X's scratched into the walls at intervals. Someone's pathfinding, leaving breadcrumbs. Each X is about waist high, just below where a child's hand might naturally rest. You follow them. They lead you past unused therapy rooms, past the chained doors labelled Aqua Subita, and into a section that smells different. Not just mould and disinfectant, but something older, earthier, like forgotten basements and rotten leather. And then suddenly, you see her. The silent girl is sitting in front of a door, drawing on the wall with a piece of black charcoal. Her hand moves smoothly, deliberately. She doesn't look up as you approach, but she knows you're there. You can feel it. The drawing is massive. Sprawled across cracked plaster, it shows the entire asylum, but wrong. The proportions are twisted. Corridors loop in impossible ways, staircases lead nowhere, and some rooms are marked with symbols you don't recognize. Spirals, eyes, jagged stars. In the centre of the drawing is a doorway. Oversized, blacked out entirely, with long arms reaching from its frame. Beneath it, the words, Utica Crib. You whisper, "What is this?" She still doesn't speak, just reaches behind her and hands you a paper, already folded, already finished. You take it and unfold it slowly. This one shows a wooden cage, horizontal, human-sized. Inside it, a figure curled tightly, limbs bent at angles that make your joints ache just looking at it. You've heard of this, the Utica crib. A 19th century invention, it was supposed to be a more humane alternative to straitjackets. It was a low, coffin-like bed with high wooden bars like a crib, but adults were locked inside it for hours, even days, their movement completely restricted. Some asylums used it as a punishment, others as standard treatment for overexcitement. Patients often came out with bruises, broken ribs, or not at all. And you realise now you passed that room before, the one with the padlock shaped like a lion's head. The staff called it storage, but the Mel told you otherwise. The silent girl finishes her drawing and finally turns to you. Her eyes are wide but calm. She taps the centre of the chalk door once, then stands and walks away. Back down the hallway toward the main ward. No words, just that tap, like a punctuation mark you're not meant to read aloud. You glance back at the door. It looks ordinary. Old, wooden, iron hinges. But your skin crawls as you approach. Your fingers twitch, a memory of electricity still pulsing in your nerves. You reach for the handle and stop the drawing. Don't open. You pull your hand away, heart thudding, and step back. Just as you do, the lantern behind you dies with a soft pop. You're plunged into darkness, real darkness. Not shadows, not dimness, just black. You fumble your way back through the hall, feeling for the wall, trying not to trip over loose stones or your own racing feet. Every few seconds you swear you hear something behind you. Breathing, heavy and wet. You don't look back. You reach the ward just as a nurse spots you. She grabs your arm. "Where the hell were you?" Her voice is low and furious. "You're not cleared for unsupervised movement." She drags you to your cot and throws you onto it like a child misbehaving at bedtime. "If I see you up again tonight, I'll have you locked in room 6. You want to ask what room 6 is, but you don't. Instead, you lie back down, hands shaking, heart slamming in your chest like it's trying to break free. Across the room, the silent girl is already in bed, eyes closed, blankets pulled up to her chin, like she never left. And that's when you realise you're starting to hum, not on purpose, it's just happening. Low and quiet. The same tune the others sing, the one that keeps the dreams away. You close your eyes, you hum because something is moving in the halls, and it's not dreaming, it's awake. The next morning, if you can even call it that, begins with a shift in pressure more than light. Your ears pop like you're changing altitude. The air smells heavier, richer, like wet wood and old coins. You open your eyes slowly, hesitant to greet the day, but fully aware you've greeted something worse in your dreams. You remember humming until you fell asleep, but your throat is raw, like maybe you didn't stop, like maybe the humming kept going after your consciousness checked out, your body running on some default defense mechanism installed deep in the spine. The ward is quieter than usual, no crying, no singing, even the tap-tap-tap from the man who usually drums with his teeth is gone. You sit up and glance around trying to spot the silent girl, but her cot is empty again. You start to worry, but not in the normal way. It's more like a signal has gone missing, an absence that feels like a hole in the rhythm of this place. And that's when the orderlies come in, 2 of them, broad-shouldered, brows like cliffs, uniforms tight across their bellies. They don't shout, they don't call names, they just walk through, slow and deliberate, scanning cots like they're shopping for produce. One of them stops at your bed and gives a sharp nod. The other takes you by the wrist and lifts. "Rotation day," he mutters. "Don't fight. Not like last time. You weren't here last time, but clearly someone who looked like you didn't take it well. They escort you, haul you, down a set of narrow stairs deeper into the building. The air cools with each step. The walls go from flaking paint to exposed stone, the mortar lines like skeletal veins in the architecture. At the bottom of the staircase is a wooden door with a brass plate that reads Rotational Therapy. They open it, and inside is a room that seems part parlour, part medieval torture chamber. The central feature is a large wooden chair mounted onto a rotating platform. A doctor in a long grey coat stands beside it, flipping through a ledger. He doesn't look up when you enter, just mumbles, 100 revolutions, then rest. If vomiting occurs, record frequency. You've read about this. The chair. Rotational therapy was designed in the early 19th century by Charles Darwin's grandfather Erasmus and used extensively throughout the Victorian era. The theory was simple and stupid. Madness, they believed, was caused by imbalances in the inner workings of the brain. Fluids sloshing wrong, thoughts pooling in bad corners. The cure? Spin the patient until the fluids rebalanced themselves, or until they passed out, or vomited their soul out through their ears. The chair itself is horrifyingly elegant. It looks almost like a gentleman's armchair. Padded and button-tufted, mounted on a large axle. Leather straps dangle from the arms and legs. An adjustable head brace sits ready, ominously open like a jaw. You're guided into it, buckled down with well-practiced hands. The doctor steps forward finally. Young, with hollow cheeks and thick lenses, he peers at you like you're a fruit fly under glass. "Let me know if you see God," he says dryly. "We've had 3 sightings this month." Then he signals to the orderlies. The chair begins to turn. At first it's slow, just a gentle spin, almost tolerable. Your body rocks with it. You might even call it calming if you didn't know better. But then the speed picks up and everything becomes liquid. Your stomach climbs your throat. Your blood sloshes from side to side. The corners of your vision stretch out like they're trying to leave your head entirely. The room becomes a blur. A whirling palette of green and brown and grey. You lose track of the number of spins. Time breaks. You're not sure if a minute has passed or an hour. You try to close your eyes, but the doctor snaps, "Keep them open." So you do, and then something happens. You see movement. Not just the usual blur of motion, but something inside the motion. In the whirl of light and shadow, figures emerge, shapes that seem too symmetrical, too patient to be hallucinations. You see doors opening, windows blinking, a tall shape walking along the edge of your vision, perfectly still even as everything else spins. You swear you see the silent girl standing next to the doctor, even though she can't possibly be there. Your body trembles. Your breath comes in gasps, but the chair doesn't stop. You start to scream, but the sound gets flattened by the spinning. It comes out low and stretched, like a voice on a warped record. Finally, mercifully, the chair slows. When it stops, you slump forward, chin caught by the strap. A bucket is placed under you just in time. You throw up, and it's not just breakfast. You think you lost a dream in there. Maybe a piece of your name. The doctor jots something down. Marked sensitivity, vivid response, revisit after rest. Then they unstrap you, carry you back down the hallway, and dump you in a small side room with a wooden bench and a flickering lantern. You sit there for what feels like eternity, dripping sweat, heart thudding unevenly. You glance at the wall and find that someone scratched a note into the plaster, barely legible. They watch the spinners, don't blink when it stops. You lean forward. You blink. Something moves across the far end of the room. A flicker. A tall shape just beyond the lantern light. You don't move. You hold your breath. It disappears. A nurse opens the door and waves you out. You're led back to the ward where dinner is being served, if you can call it that. Bread so hard it could double as a weapon. Soup that looks like the rinse water from a forgotten mop. You eat anyway. You're empty. Later, after lights out, you hear humming again. The tune is slower tonight, dragging. You join in without thinking. And across the room, the silent girl slips another drawing under your blanket. You open it. It's you, spinning. And behind you, reaching out, is the long-armed figure. Dear. No face, no eyes. Just the words scrawled beneath in trembling black crayon. It waits for the diz, you says. You don't sleep, you wake. Or maybe you just shift from one nightmare to the next, to the wet squelch of boots on stone. Not the usual soft-footed shuffle of nurses, or the uneven stomp of an orderly. This sound is different. Heavy, deliberate. Someone's pacing through the ward in the dark. You lie perfectly still, eyes half-lidded, in, heart galloping. Whoever it is, they don't speak. They pause now and then, just long enough to let the silence fill with dread, then move again. A slow circle around the cots. You wonder if anyone else hears it, but no one moves. Maybe they're all faking sleep like you. Maybe they've learned not to acknowledge it. Eventually the footsteps fade. You don't relax. You just wait for morning, or what passes for it in here. When the lights buzz on, there's no announcement. No nurse barging in with a clipboard. Just a sour smell that wafts into the ward like steam from a sewer. You sit up and realise the door to the hallway is open, and no one's come to collect you. Strange. Even stranger. The silent girl is already awake and waiting at the foot of your cot. No crayon in hand, no drawing, just a look. Her gaze is sharp today, awake in a way she hasn't been before. She reaches into the front of her smock and pulls out a folded note. Real paper this time. She hands it to you, then walks away without waiting. You unfold it. One word, kitchen. That's it. No map, no explanation. But the idea of leaving the ward, even briefly, is enough to get your blood moving. You wait a while, watch the nurses down the corridor, watch the guards patrol their usual loop. When the timing feels right, you slip into the hallway, keeping close to the wall, eyes low. The asylum kitchen is buried deep in the building, past the laundry and a corridor labelled provisioning, with rusted signs pointing in conflicting directions. It smells like fat ash and bleach. The kind of place where vegetables go to die and soup gets born from bones that should have been buried instead. When you arrive, it's empty. Odd, given that it's meal prep hour. Long metal tables are streaked with grease and knife gouges. Pots hang from hooks above a massive stove, and in the corner sits a sack of potatoes that seem more fungal than starchy. You take a slow step inside. That's when you see it. A narrow door partially hidden behind a curtain of hanging ladles. It's been left slightly ajar. Light filters through the crack, flickering like candlelight. You push it open. The room beyond is barely more than a closet. Shelves of canned goods, burlap sacks, and crumbling spice jars line the walls, but against the far side, under a low-hanging lantern, is a table. On the table is a tray. On the tray is food, real food, a slab of roasted meat, dark and glistening. Bread that isn't hard, a small bowl of honeyed fruit, and next to it an envelope. You approach carefully. This feels like bait. You open the envelope. Inside, another drawing. This one shows a feast. A dozen people seated around a long wooden table, but every face is distorted, twisted into smiles too wide, eyes black pits, arms too long, necks too thin. And above them all looms the tall figure. This time it's seated at the head of the table, wearing a crown made of bone. On the back, written in scratchy pencil, "It feeds us so we forget." You look back at the tray of food. The smell is suddenly nauseating, like sweetness rotting in your throat. You step back, nearly trip. You don't take a bite, not a single crumb. Later, back in the ward, you try to focus on something, anything else. The walls, the patterns in the cracks, the drip of a leaking pipe near the corner. Anything but the memory of that drawing, of that food, of what it means. Because now you're wondering, how often have you eaten here without question? Without checking what it was? How many meals were distraction? One patient, a thin man with yellowed eyes, sits near you that afternoon. He's humming again, but this time it's a lullaby you recognise. Something from childhood, twisted slightly off-key. "Why do you all hum?" you ask finally. He blinks, as if surprised you're speaking, then leans in. "So we don't taste it," he whispers. "In the food, in the water, the music scrambles it." You sit in silence for a long time after that. Dinner comes and you don't eat. The nurses notice. They don't say anything, they just jot something down. Later that night you hear it again, the heavy steps, the slow pacing. But this time something else follows. A soft scrape like fingernails dragged along metal. A low creak. As if a door's been opened somewhere it shouldn't have been. You hold the blanket tight around you and close your eyes, trying to focus on the sound of your own breathing. But it's hard, because you're not sure it's the only breathing in your bed. Just before the lights are cut for the night, you find another drawing under your pillow. This one is of your own bed, from above, and the faceless figure is standing next to it, looking down. The words beneath say, "Don't look up," so you don't. You stay perfectly still, and eventually the breathing fades. The following morning doesn't start with the usual bell or shouted orders. Instead, the lights remain dim for longer than usual, and the ward is filled with a strange, almost reverent quiet. You open your eyes and sense it immediately. Something has shifted. The patients, normally humming or twitching, or murmuring nonsense, are still. Too still. Some sit upright in their beds like statues. Others remain curled tightly beneath their blankets. One man sits cross-legged on the floor beside his cot, staring at the wall with tears streaming down his cheeks, but making no sound. No breakfast arrives. No nurses enter. You rise slowly, joints creaking, neck stiff. You take stock of the room. 22 patients accounted for, but the silent girl's bed is empty. Again, her drawings are gone. Not just the new ones, but even the oldest one still pinned above her cot. Just a clean patch of wall now, lighter than the surrounding plaster, as if her presence had been scrubbed out of history. You're not the only one who notices. The Queen of England, as she calls herself, clutches a blanket to her chest and mutters. They erased her, just like the twins, just like George with the silver eyes. Then she looks right at you. You're next. You want to say she's just playing a role, just another victim of fractured reality, but her tone is too even, too lucid. It leaves a pit in your stomach that breakfast might have filled if they'd brought it. Finally, just as the silence starts to turn into something unbearable, an orderly appears at the door. He doesn't speak. He just gestures. You're expected to follow, alone. The others avert their eyes as you pass. You try to give them a glance, a look that says I'll be back, but no one meets your gaze. They already know better. You're led down the east corridor, one you've never been allowed to walk before. This part of the building is colder, less maintained. The wallpaper peels in long, curling strips. The light fixtures buzz constantly, some flickering so erratically they might as well be signalling in Morse. You pass a broken clock stuck at 3:17. You hear dripping water but never see its source. Eventually, you reach a heavy wooden door marked simply Observation Theatre. The orderly knocks once, then opens it. Inside, the air is thick and wrong. It smells of antiseptic, sweat, and something almost metallic, like hot pennies. The room resembles a small amphitheatre, with wooden benches rising in tiers around a central space where a gurney rests under a glaring spotlight. And someone is already on it. You recognise the face, though it's slack and empty now, the man with the twitching eye who hummed old church hymns under his breath. He's strapped down, limbs motionless, mouth slightly ajar. You glance around and realise the benches are filled with staff, nurses, orderlies, a few unfamiliar men in high-collared coats and pocket watches, their expressions unreadable. One of them steps forward, a doctor, elderly, moustached. His hands clasped behind his back, his voice is precise, practiced. Today we demonstrate the modern frontier of psychiatric intervention, an evolution of prior trepanning methods refined through rigorous costumes. You want to leave. You try to step back, but the door shuts behind you with a loud clack. The orderly is gone. You're motioned forward to a seat near the front. You sit, because what else can you do? The doctor begins. He talks about the roots of madness, the danger of unchecked delusion, the importance of physical intervention. He uses terms like neural drainage, mental untethering, and sanity reclamation. And then he opens a black case beside the gurney. Inside, a series of long, gleaming instruments. One is shaped like an ice pick, another like a tuning fork. He selects the pick. You don't want to watch. You turn your head away, but the nurses beside you are watching you, not the procedure. You understand this isn't just a demonstration. This is a warning. The doctor slips the pick into the corner of the patient's eye socket. There's no anaesthesia, just a sharp inhale, then silence. He taps the top with a small hammer. Once, twice, a third time. The sound is sickening. Then he withdraws the instrument and steps back. The man doesn't move. Remarkably effective, so the doctor says, wiping the tool clean. Reduced aggression, limited cognitive function, the perfect patient. The perfect corpse, more like. This is your first up-close look at a Victorian lobotomy. Once thought revolutionary, it was performed on countless patients across Europe and the US, often without consent. The idea was that disrupting the frontal lobe could reset the mind. The result? Catatonia, obedience, a human body emptied of the storm. Some modern scholars argue it was a product of desperation, time without antipsychotics when doctors grasped at anything. Others argue it was sadism in a white coat. Still debated, still unresolved. You look back at the gurney. The man is being unstrapped. He doesn't resist. He doesn't speak. His eyes are open, but nothing lives behind them. You're led out before you can see where they take him. Back in the hallway, the lights flicker again. Your own reflection in the glass of a locked medicine cabinet looks strange. Pale, wide-eyed, thinner than you remember. You touch your face. It doesn't feel like it yours. That night in the ward, you don't sleep. The cot creaks every time you move, but you can't stay still. Your thoughts spin faster than the chair ever did. And at some point, maybe near midnight, a shadow crosses your bed. You freeze. It's not a nurse. It's not a patient. It leans over you, the long arms unmistakable, the face a void. But it doesn't touch you. Instead, it slips something beneath your blanket. A drawing. You wait until the shadow's gone. You don't move for several minutes after. Then slowly you unfold the paper. It's the operating theatre. You, in the front row, the faceless figure seated behind you, watching the procedure. On the back, written in looping black ink, you watched. Now it knows your face. You don't eat the next morning. No one does. Not because there's no food this time. Breakfast arrives like clockwork, thin oatmeal with some sort of crust on top, a limp slice of pear that might have once seen sunlight, but because no one has the will to lift a spoon. The mood in the ward is different now. Dense, like fog inside your lungs. It's not just fear anymore, it's resignation. As if something has cracked in the foundation of the place and everyone can feel the building slanting toward whatever's underneath. You sit on your cot, trying to fold yourself into smallness. You're still clutching last night's drawing. You've read the words on the back 100 times now. It knows your face. Your fingers are numb. Your heart refuses to settle. And all morning long the staff are quiet too. They whisper in pairs, glancing at clipboards, peering down the hallways like they're watching for a storm that hasn't hit yet, but already left debris in the corners. Then a new sound begins, something mechanical, grinding, rhythmic. You've heard it before in passing, but today it's louder, more insistent. A machine in pain. You're called into the hall along with a handful of others. The nurse on duty doesn't say where you're going, just holds up her clipboard and mutters names like it's a spell she hates reciting. You're marched down a series of corridors you've never walked before, past doors without handles and windows with hinges that open inward only. At the end of the corridor is a room with iron walls and wires coiled like vines along the ceiling. Inside waits a doctor, young, smiling too broadly, and a device the size of a coffin tipped on its side. Electrotherapy. Again. But this time it's not the hand-crank machine from before. This one's newer. Humming. Eager. They place a rubber block between your teeth. The orderly warns you, bite or bleed. Then they strap you into a reclining chair and adjust the sponge-covered nodes across your scalp. The doctor gives you a quick, lazy nod. We're going to see if the lights are still on in there. The voltage comes fast, your teeth lock around the rubber. Your eyes roll back before you mean to let them. Your arms spasm against the restraints. For one long second, the whole world reduces to a burning line across your brain. White, electric, endless, then black. You come back with the taste of sulphur in your throat and your head ringing like an old cathedral bell. The doctor is checking your pupils. He smiles when you blink. Good, he says. Still useful. They return you to the ward. Your vision pulses. Everything looks off-kilter, like the ground's been rotated 5 degrees to the left. Someone tries to speak to you, but it comes out warped and underwater. You lie down and stare at the ceiling until the sound starts to return, until the shadows in the corners start to feel less alive, but they never go away completely. You remember a detail from your reading, how early electroconvulsive therapy was used not just for psychosis, but for depression, for moral apathy, even for unruly wives. The shocks were meant to restart the brain like a jammed music box, but too often it just broke the music entirely. There's a debate even now. Some say ECT has a place in modern psychiatry, controlled doses, anesthesia. Others say it's the same cruelty with better lighting. Here, it's just one more way to turn people into ghosts. The rest of the day is a blur. At some point you're sitting in the garden, a narrow strip of dead grass between two wings of the asylum. A single bench. A statue of an angel missing its face. The air smells of fertilizer and rust. The silent girl is there. She sits beside you, hands folded in her lap, head tilted toward the clouds. You don't ask where she's been, you don't have to. Her cadence is louder than ever today. She pulls something from her sleeve. Another drawing. This one is different. Not a warning. A map. You recognise the layout. The ward, the dining hall, the rotating chair room. But there's more. A tunnel. A crawl space. A hatch marked with a red X deep in the east wing. On the back, written in perfect block letters, tomorrow, third watch, bring nothing. You fold the paper, tuck it into your waistband and nod once. That night you hum the song again. Everyone does. Like a choir of survivors, unsure who died and who didn't. Sometime in the darkness the humming falters, then stops. You hear something. A voice. Not a scream, not a cry. A voice clear and deep, whispering something in a language you don't know but somehow understand. You don't dare move. You don't breathe. Then something soft touches your foot. Just once, like a fingertip. When the lights come up in the morning, your blanket is soaked through. Not with sweat, with salt water. And on your pillow is another drawing. The tunnel from the map. Only now it's collapsed. A stick figure drawn in red lays beneath the rubble. And above it, if you're seen, you won't come back. You wake with your body already tense, like it's bracing for impact, and when you sit up, every muscle creaks like you've been sleeping inside a suitcase. The pillow under your head is still damp, thankfully not with salt water this time, but it smells faintly metallic, and you don't investigate any further. You check your waistband. The map is still there, folded neatly, soft from too much handling. A fragile escape route drawn by a girl who hasn't spoken in a decade, and may or may not exist in the normal sense of the word. Today is the day. Third watch. That means after the final nurse rounds. Sometime between when the humming fades and the whispers begin. You go through the motions all morning, careful not to raise suspicion. You eat the oatmeal, just enough to look normal. You nod when spoken to. You join the others during the so-called recreation hour, where patients are given old, softened dominoes with half the dots worn off. You even pretend to lose. None of it matters, not really. But the illusion of compliance is the only shield you have. When the group is marched to therapy blocks, you stay behind, claiming nausea. One of the nurses gives you a side glance. Too sharp, but she allows it. "Clean your cot then," she says flatly. "Don't just sit there like a slug." You nod and shuffle back to the ward. The room is quiet, unusually so. You begin stripping your cot and remaking it by hand slower than you need to. Hands moving, mind calculating, the tunnel, the map, the drawing that came after it. The one with the warning, if you're seen, you won't come back. You replay the routes in your head, every corridor and turn. You think about the drawing of the collapsed passage, and how maybe it's not a prediction, but a possibility. A timeline, if you mess up. Back in the ward, something catches your attention. A voice. Not words, not exactly, just syllables, broken and breathy. You glance over and see her. The silent girl. Standing at the far end of the room, facing the window. Her lips are moving. You approach cautiously, slowly, like you're nearing a sleeping dog you're not sure will bite. As you get closer, you realise she's not speaking to you. She's reciting. Her voice is dry and halting, like a phonograph needle stuck on a scratched record. The door turns twice, then backwards, once, then 3 knocks. Then she stops, shakes her head, closes her eyes. You don't ask for more, you don't interrupt. You just memorize it. The door turns twice, then backwards once, then 3 knocks. You repeat it under your breath all day like a prayer. You skip lunch. No appetite. Instead, you watch. You watch the nurses change shifts. You count the jangling keys. You track which orderlies limp, which ones smoke, which ones take longer bathroom breaks. You note when the lights flicker in the hallway outside the east wing. 3-second delay between buzz and blackout. Enough time. Third watch comes. The ward is dark. The humming has started to fade. People are lying flat, eyes open, mouths closed, waiting, listening, pretending to sleep like they've done 1,000 nights before. You rise. No one stops you. Your bare feet press silently against the stone floor, now familiar under your soles. You make your way down the corridor, using the wall to guide you. You take the left fork past the broken clock. 3:17. Still stuck. Always stuck. You reach the iron gate that leads into the old laundry wing, now abandoned, supposedly condemned. There's no sign, just mildew-stained tile and a faint smell of burnt cloth. You find the door, the one from the map. The handle is cold in your hand. You turn it twice, backwards once, then knock 3 times. There's a pause, then a click. The door opens inward just an inch. Just enough. You slip inside. The air here is different. No rot, no piss, no antiseptic, just stillness. It's thick, like stepping underwater. You hold your breath. The room is long, narrow, lined with rusted machines and bins, filled with rags the colour of dried blood. You move forward, feeling your way toward the back wall, just like on the map. There, behind a sagging set of shelves, a gap in the bricks. You squeeze through it and drop into a low tunnel. It's just tall enough to crawl through. Dirt floor, wooden beams overhead. You go slowly, counting your breaths, praying you don't hear footsteps behind you. After what feels like forever, the tunnel opens into a chamber. Old storage, maybe. You see discarded beds, broken restraints, rusted tools, and at the far end the hatch, exactly like she drew it. Red X and all, you lift the hatch carefully, holding your breath. A ladder leads down into pitch black. You hesitate, then descend. The rungs are damp, some wobble, the wood groans under your weight. When your feet hit solid ground, you exhale and feel your way forward. Then something crunches under your foot. You freeze. It's paper. You pick it up. Another drawing. Drawn in haste. The hatch. The ladder. You. And behind you, rising up from the shadows, the long-armed figure. On the back, the handwriting is different. Messier. Too late. You whirl around. There's nothing. Just dark. But you feel it now. A presence, not sound, not sight, just awareness, watching. You bolt forward, stumbling through the dark. Your hands scrape against brick. The tunnel narrows again. You crawl, you bleed, you keep going. Then, a glint, a sliver of light. You claw toward it. Your hand breaks through. Air, cold, fresh air. You push yourself out into an alley behind the asylum. Overgrown grass, iron fence the outside, and you made it. You breathe, you cry, you laugh a little. Then you see it. Another drawing, tacked to the inside of the fence with a shard of glass. It shows the asylum and your face from the outside, captioned with 3 words, "You never left." You don't move for a long time, you just stand there, staring at the drawing stuck to the inside of the iron fence. Your face, clearly yours, is sketched with unsettling accuracy, down to the lines under your eyes, the slight crook of your nose, the thin, panicked mouth. The asylum towers behind you in the image, looming hungry, impossibly large. The drawing has no borders. The paper ends, but the building seems to go on forever, like it's still being constructed outside the edges of the world. Underneath it all, those 3 damning words, "You never livers left and both." You touch the paper, hoping it'll feel fake, stay. But it's slow. You try to peel it away, but it tears easily, already waterlogged from the damp air. You keep a fragment, your own penciled eye, wide and too knowing, and shove it into your smock. Then you climb through the fence. The metal bites into your palms, the tips twisted like thorns. Beyond it is the woods. That much you remember from your arrival. Trees, a gravel path, a shadow of civilization you once belonged to. You run. Branches claw at your arms. Roots try to trip you. You don't care. You run until your lungs sear and your heart thunders like a ritual drumbeat. But there's no path now, just underbrush. Trees closing in like teeth. You stop, look back, and nothing. The asylum isn't there. No building, no gate, not even the fence, just woods in every direction, as if the place had never existed. You breathe, you blink, you turn, there's a light ahead. Flickering, firelight. You move toward it cautiously, stepping around twisted roots and piles of dry leaves that crunch like broken glass. The clearing reveals a small stone chapel, abandoned, ivy-draped, the stained glass cracked and bowing inward. Inside, the light comes from a single candle resting in the centre of the altar, surrounded by dozens of pieces of paper, all drawn in the same familiar style. You recognise them instantly, drawings, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, each one a scene from the asylum, a patient's face, a corridor, a treatment room, a window that shows something behind it. In every one of them, the same figure lurks, sometimes in full, sometimes as a shadow, sometimes hidden so well you wouldn't see it unless you already knew to look. But it's always there, always watching. You pick one up at random. It's the dining hall. Crude forks, bowls, a nurse with her back turned. And under one of the tables, the shape, long arms, bent knees, no face, tease. You gather several drawings and flip them over. Notes, phrases, messages he sees through mirrors. Don't drink the tea. Room 6 is the mouth. Dreams are memory dressed up to lie. The chapel burns every 5th night. That last one jolts you. You glance at the stone walls, scorch marks. Ash near the window, burned edges on some of the drawings. It's real. Someone, or something, keeps torching this place. And then you see the newest drawing. It hasn't dried yet. Ink still wet. It shows the clearing, the chapel, the candle, you, standing in the doorway. Right now, your eyes flicking up. Across from you, in the shadows beyond the altar, a girl sits hunched over another page. Silent. Still. She looks up. It's her. The silent girl. She hasn't drawn you in this place, you are in her drawing. You move slowly, as if speaking might collapse the moment. You kneel beside her, and she passes you the latest piece. Her hand brushes yours. Cold, dry, like she's been carved out of paper. The new drawing is different. It shows a room you've never seen. A round chamber with 12 doors, each marked with a Roman numeral. In the centre, a spiral staircase going down. Much further down than the paper allows, it vanishes into darkness, the spiral pulling inward like a whirlpool. You look at her. Where is this? She points behind you. You turn, there's nothing, just trees. But now, between two trunks, you see a sliver of something. Stone, circular, covered in ivy. You push through the foliage and reveal a structure half buried in the ground. A dome, cracked, with a rusted handle on one side. It's not part of the asylum, not officially. It was never in the blueprints, assuming the asylum had any that weren't false, but it feels connected. Part of the original sickness, the root instead of the fruit. You glance back to the girl. She's gone. No footsteps, no rustling, no farewell, just gone. You hesitate only a second, then open the hatch. The smell hits first, mould and copper and something that feels like rotting time. The ladder descends into blackness. You follow it, rung by rung, heart slamming against your ribs like it's trying to stay above ground without you. At the bottom is a round room just like the drawing. 12 doors, stone floor, spiral pattern etched beneath your feet. You pick one. Number G-O-O. It opens. Inside is your bedroom. Not the cot, not the ward. Your real bedroom. From your old life, posters on the wall, a backpack in the corner, a phone charger you haven't seen in months. It's too perfect. You step back and shut the door. Try another. Number 9. It's your childhood kitchen. Sticky linoleum. That one burned spoon, you feel your knees go soft. Another, door 11, the asylum hallway. Only mirrored. Everything reversed. You understand now. These are fragments, dreams, maybe memories, maybe bait. Each door is a version of a place that once existed or still does, but filtered through something else. Something that feeds on familiarity and turns it to fog. You try the last door. Well, it won't open. You knock, nothing. Then you realise something. The doors aren't locked. You're locked in, the lights dim, footsteps echo above you. Not from the ladder, from inside the walls. You reach into your pocket, pull out the torn drawing, the one from the fence, your own eye watching. You flip it over. New words have appeared. Don't look up again. You do. It's there, clinging to the ceiling, arms outstretched, waiting. You don't scream, you can't. Your lungs forget how, you just stand frozen, neck craned upward, eyes locked on the thing above you. It clings to the ceiling like a spider, limbs jointed at odd angles, too long, too still. Its body is vaguely human, but stretched, like someone tried to redraw the idea of a man with trembling hands, no face. Just skin pulled smooth where features should be. It breathes, or at least the chest moves in a way that suggests breath. Inhale, exhale, slow, rhythmic. Too slow to belong to anything alive, you take a step back. The creature doesn't move. Another step. Still nothing. But your foot lands on one of the etched spiral lines in the floor. Just a groove in the stone, no big deal. Until the creature's head turns, you didn't see it move. It was just one way and now it's another. Facing you. Or maybe facing the air where you used to be. Maybe facing something that was with you and left without you knowing. Either way, it knows you're here. You step back again. Your heel hits one of the closed doors. Icon, the childhood kitchen. You fumble for the handle, but it's stuck now. Not locked, just part of the wall, seamless, erased. The spiral on the floor begins to glow faintly, a dull orange, like embers waking up after a long sleep. Heat rises through your soles. The creature begins to twitch. Just a little. Fingers flexing, elbows bending, like it's getting comfortable in your discomfort. You bolt. You don't think. You just run the curve of the room, trying door after door, but they're all gone now. Just walls, no numbers, no handles. The dome has shifted, become one perfect stone sphere, with you trapped inside like a marble in a child's fist. Your mind races, pulling scraps of memory together like a makeshift rope. What did the silent girl say or draw? There was a room like this once, wasn't there? Or was it just a warning, or a plan? You force yourself to stop, breathe. The creature's still on the ceiling, but it's moving now, slowly, crawling, impossibly silent, as though gravity is just a suggestion it's not interested in. You press your palm to the floor. The spiral is pulsing, each beat slower than your heart, but stronger. You feel it in your bones. This room was meant to do something, or to stop something, maybe both. In a corner now, if such a thing exists in a room without corners, you spot something. A shape against the curve of the wall, crumpled cloth. You edge toward it, watching the ceiling, feeling the creature shift above. It's a body, not fresh, not rotten either, just preserved, like it's been waiting. Curled in the fetal position, clutching a bundle of paper. Drawings. You take them carefully. These are older than the others. Worn, water-damaged. The same style, but rougher. Younger hands. Each one shows the spiral room, drawn again and again. Different versions, different arrangements of doors. Some with two creatures, some with none. One with a mirror where the ceiling should be. You flip one over. Words etched deep in the paper. It doesn't hunt. It waits. You trap yourself. Another. Spirals are locks. Walk them the wrong way. And another. Find the mouth. Feed it nothing. You freeze. That last phrase, it matches something the Queen of England mumbled 3 nights ago during one of her tea parties. You thought it was nonsense. You dismissed it. You look up again. The creature has stopped. It's hanging directly above you now, limbs spread wide. Waiting. You step onto the spiral, you start walking it. Backwards, one step at a time, eyes low, never looking up again. The grooves in the floor hum faintly under your feet. You pass the centre of the room. The pulse changes, becomes louder, like footsteps behind your ribs. The spiral coils in the other direction now, widening. You continue walking. The light changes, the air cools. Behind you a sound like stone cracking under heat. You don't look, you just keep walking. Eventually a section of the wall slides open, a new hallway, dark and narrow. Just enough room for one body. You step through and the door shuts behind you with a low, final thud. The kind of sound that tells you you're not going back. You're in a service corridor now, brick-lined. Pipes along the ceiling, condensation dripping in slow intervals. The air tastes metallic, bitter. You keep walking, no idea where it leads. No plan, just away. Then a voice. Not spoken, not heard, just felt. You opened it. You stop. "Who's there?" you whisper, hating how small your voice sounds. You knew, you hummed, you saw, you press your hands to your ears. "Leave me alone." You invited. You fed it fear. You fed it names. You stumble forward, panic rising in your throat. The corridor tilts. Not metaphorically. The floor is literally sloping now, downward, like you're walking into the belly of something. Water begins to pool around your feet. Cold, ankle deep. Then deeper. The walls begin to shimmer, not with moisture, with images, reflections. Your face distorted. Your memories refracted, misaligned. You see the dining hall, you see the cold water bath, you see the rotation chair, the gurney, the faces of the others. Their eyes turn toward you in unison, and behind them, always behind them, the tall figure, watching, patient, waiting. You close your eyes and keep walking. Eventually you hit something. A door, room 6. There's no handle, only a small slit at eye level. You peer through it. On the other side is the silent girl. She's staring at you, but this time she's speaking. You can't hear her, but her lips are moving, slowly. 3 words, over and over. You read them, you mouth them. It's your turn. The slit closes. The door groans and opens. The door creaks open like it resents the effort, every inch sounding like rust being peeled off bone. Beyond it is a room you know instantly and hate instantly, though you've never stepped inside it before, room 6. You've heard whispers, warnings, even a few unprompted mutterings from the patients who never quite returned the same after being taken here. It's spoken of with a hush, like a fairy tale people are too superstitious to admit is real. Don't look into the peephole. Don't let them call your name. If the floor talks, ignore it. Now here you are, inside it. The first thing you notice is the floor. It's not stone like the rest of the asylum, but thick black rubber. Padded like something designed to absorb either impact or sound, or screams. It slopes slightly downward, like a bowl. and the air is thick with humidity, as though the walls have been sweating. The second thing you notice is the ceiling. Too low, too close, yet somehow just out of reach, like it's been watching you from the moment you entered. There's a chair in the centre. Always a chair, isn't there? This one's metal, bolted into the floor with wide restraints that are permanently open, like arms inviting a hug you really shouldn't accept. A table stands nearby, covered with familiar items, pages of drawings, a coil of wire, a small dusty mirror cracked across the centre. Behind you, the door slams shut without anyone touching it. No lock clicks, no latch turns. But you know it won't open again. The room hums, not like electricity. This is deeper, more internal. You feel it in your teeth. It makes your stomach twist like your organs are slowly sliding into the wrong order. You reach for the table. The drawings are in her style. The silent girl. But different now. They are sharper, angrier, almost frantic. Each one is of you. One shows you walking through the hallway you just came from. Another shows you crawling through the tunnel. One even shows you sleeping on your cot, mouth slightly open, eyes fluttering behind the lids. You turn them over. They're all signed, not with a name but a symbol, a spiral drawn in thick red crayon. You hear something then, a footstep, not outside the door, inside the room. You freeze, slowly turn, nothing, empty air, but something is breathing. Not you, not quite, a slow, patient inhale like it's learning how. There's a mirror on the far wall, old and foggy. You approach it, but your reflection doesn't match your movement. When you raise your hand, the reflection waits half a second before doing the same. Not a glitch, something watching, deliberating, echoing you imperfectly. You speak. Who are you? Your reflection opens its mouth but doesn't speak. Instead, something falls from its lips, something small and round. A marble? A tooth? A tiny eye? It hits the floor on the other side of the mirror, and the reflection bends to pick it up. You watch, horrified, as it presses it back into its face like putting a puzzle piece back in place. Then it grins. You back away, heart slamming in your chest like it's searching for a hatch in your ribs. The chair in the centre of the room creaks slowly, like someone just sat down in it. You didn't see anyone move. You turn. It's you, yourself, seated in the chair, bound at the wrists, head lolled to the side, eyes fluttering. A perfect replica, a second you. And it's mouthing something silently over and over. You lean in. It's the same phrase the silent girl whispered from behind the peephole. It's your turn. You stagger back. Panic surges like boiling water in your chest. You lurch toward the door, but there's nothing, just wall now. Seamless, cool, unyielding. The reflection watches. The copy watches. You're surrounded by versions of yourself. Past, potential, decayed. And then you hear a new sound, keys jangling, footsteps. The door appears again, forming from the wall like a blister rising on skin. It opens slowly, and a nurse steps in. But she's wrong. Too tall. Her shoes don't touch the floor. Her cap is too small for her skull. Her smile is enormous, a crescent of false cheer stretching almost to her ears. She gestures. We're ready for you now. You shake your head. You don't move. She tilts her head. You've been observed. Thoroughly. Thank you for your cooperation. The lights flicker. The chair is empty again. Hollowhurst. The second you is gone. The mirror is just a wall. The table is bare. None of it was ever there. The nurse's grin remains. You've passed the preliminary stage. The real treatment begins now. Your legs move without permission. Toward her. Through the door. Back into the corridor. But everything's different. The walls pulse like veins. The ceiling drips water that hisses when it touches your skin. Every door you pass bears a symbol. Eyes, spirals, jaws, clocks. You realise then, with cold certainty, that the asylum has changed. It's been watching, learning you. It's no longer pretending to be a place. It's a system, a ritual, a machine, and you're in the middle of its diagnosis. They take you to a new room, no bed, no cot, just walls made of mirrors, all slightly distorted. You see 1,000 versions of yourself, each one different, each one broken in its own way. They leave you there for hours, days, maybe longer. Don't sleep. You don't blink, you just stare, until one reflection stops copying you, and smiles. You try not to react. You sit there with your legs folded beneath you, back pressed against the mirrored wall, pretending like you didn't just see it. But the reflection, one of hundreds, smiles, and it shouldn't. You haven't moved. Your mouth hasn't moved. That one should be you, just like all the others. But it's not. It's grinning, lips drawn tight over two small teeth, not crooked, condensed, like the face was pressed into a mould and someone forgot to adjust for human proportions. You stare forward, not at it. That seems important. Like an animal in the woods you know not to acknowledge, but you can feel it watching. Not just mirroring, watching. Around you the mirrors pulse faintly. Breathing maybe. At least it feels like breath, slow expansions and contractions as if the room has lungs. You've been here long enough to start measuring time by the pulses. You lost your voice 2 days ago. Or was it 5? Your lips are cracked from the dry air. Your stomach doesn't even bother growling anymore. It just twists now and then in protest, like a fist unclenching too slowly. No food, no water, no one comes, except the smiling one. You call it the grin in your mind, because giving it a name keeps it from growing too big. It's easier to pretend it's a single problem, one face, one false smile, not a possibility that's spread through the mirrors like a virus in silver. Sometimes it mimics you perfectly for hours, and you start to think maybe it was just your mind fried by too much cold gruel and fluorescent light. But then it comes back, smiling when you're weeping, waving when your arms are limp. Once you curled up to sleep and caught it crawling in the reflection. Hunched and backwards, limbs folding the wrong way. No sound, no breath, just motion. You tried breaking a mirror. That was your big rebellion. You stood and threw your shoe with all the force you could summon at the one directly across from you. It cracked cleanly, lines radiating from the centre like a starburst, and for one beautiful second, you saw only distortion, only broken glass and chaos. You laughed. You were proud. Until the wall behind the broken one shifted. Not visibly, just subtly. The air pressure changed. The hum in your teeth grew sharper, as though you'd annoyed something. And then, as you were smiling at your small act of defiance, the grin appeared in the next mirror. 2 reflections to the left, closer, smiling wider, now with red crayon dripping down its chin like a bib. That night, or what you think was night, the drawings returned. They didn't come with footsteps. You just woke and found them beside you, folded neatly like a napkin at a fancy dinner. 6 drawings, each one worse than the last. One shows the reflection room, but the mirrors are filled with screaming mouths, not faces. Another shows the silent girl, but she's hanging from the ceiling by her hair, her eyes replaced by spirals. One is just a hand, long-fingered, sketched with a speed that suggests terror. It's reaching down over and over from the top of the page. You turn the drawings over. All of them say the same thing. Where did you go when you fell asleep? That question clings to your brain. You don't remember dreaming. But maybe you did. Maybe that's when the grin took your place in the glass. Maybe it's not mimicking you at all. Maybe you are mimicking it, trying to win your way back into your own reflection. You begin humming again, softly. That same old lullaby. You thought you were over it, that you didn't need it anymore, but your voice shakes in your throat and your hands twitch with an involuntary rhythm. The sound helps. It's something to anchor you, something yours. You catch grin flinching once, ever so slightly, when the humming hits a high note. You keep humming. Eventually, the door opens. It's the silent girl. She stands in the threshold, her smock dusted with ash, her hair loose and tangled. Her bare feet are bleeding slightly. She holds something, a folded piece of thick cloth. You rise slowly. The mirrors don't react. Even grin stays still. She tosses the cloth to you. It lands softly at your feet. A blindfold. You understand immediately. You put it on. Everything goes dark. Not just the dark of closed eyes, but something deeper. A blind darkness. A darkness that smells like age. You feel her hand take yours. Small and cold and steady. She pulls. The mirrors don't break. They just stop. The hum in your teeth fades. Your heart calms. One step. Another. You're walking blind, but you feel a corridor narrowing, then opening. The air shifts from metal to mildew. A door opens. You hear it. Hinges, not mechanical. Wooden. You're in a different room now. She removes the blindfold. You're underground again. Stone walls, candlelight. A low ceiling hung with damp woven cloths that sway like sleeping bats. A group of people sits in a circle. Familiar faces. Some you saw in the ward, others you only remember from distant screams or glimpses in the dining hall. Survivors, or something like it. One man speaks. He's missing 3 fingers and both eyebrows. You made it through the mirrors. Another, a woman with one grey eye and one blue, leans forward. How long were you trapped? You shake your head. I don't know. The silent girl hands you another drawing. This one is of you in the circle surrounded by the others. It's the first peaceful image she's ever given you. No grin, no spirals, just candlelight and people with eyes wide open. Beneath it, she's written, "We find each other in the dark. You hold it to your chest. You don't ask what comes next. You're just grateful to still be someone worth drawing." The first thing you learn about the underground circle is that nobody calls it an escape. Escape implies there's a way out, and everyone here agrees that there's no such thing, not in the traditional sense. This place, says the man with the missing fingers, isn't a building. It's a shape, a thought someone had once that grew too big to be buried. His name, or at least the one he uses now, is Dre. He claims he was a janitor here before being redirected to patient status after trying to unlock the wrong door. You believe him, mostly because everyone here speaks in that same slow, careful way, like people who've broken teeth on the truth and are trying not to bite it again. You sit beside the silent girl. She hasn't spoken since leading you through the mirror corridor, but she keeps drawing, always drawing. A new page every few hours, each one adding a piece to something bigger. You can tell by the way she spaces her lines, as if the paper is only one panel in a massive mural. You catch glimpses, a spiral staircase made of vertebrae, a figure with a clock for a spine, a room labelled simply, "The Composer." You're not the only new face in the circle. Across from you sits a tall, broad-shouldered man with smudges of ink on his fingers. He hums constantly, but not the lullaby. His is orchestral, complicated, layered. You ask what he's humming, and he replies without opening his eyes. A symphony no one else remembers, but I wrote it, I think. His voice is melodic, almost too smooth. You learn later that he once taught at the Royal Conservatory, before he vanished one winter afternoon and turned up 2 years later with nothing but a page of music and a diagnosis. They call him the Composer. You start to see how the underground circle survives. Everyone has a piece of the asylum's truth. Some carry it in their mouths, others in drawings or songs or strange body rhythms. One woman taps Morse code into the walls with her fingernails. Another sleeps only in 20-minute intervals, muttering coordinates in her sleep. They've all seen it, or at least something shaped like it. Not everyone calls it the same name. The Long Man, the Watcher, the Wound, the Mirror's Edge, but the pattern is unmistakable. They tell you stories. Dre's is the first. He talks about discovering the original blueprints in a locked sub-basement, drawings that spiraled out from the centre rather than stacking floors like a normal building. Rooms labelled in archaic Latin. A chamber labelled Vigilare Oculus, the waking eye. No one knows where it is, but some swear they've heard breathing coming from the floorboards beneath the chapel. The composer's story is more cryptic. He says he never saw the figure directly, just heard it, in his music. He played a melody one night in the Rec Room piano, a scale he thought he'd invented, and the air changed. The room turned silent. People stopped moving, and from the walls came a low hum that matched the final note. The music opened something, he says. I closed the lid, but the key was already in the lock. You begin to understand why so many patients wander these halls like sleepwalkers. The asylum doesn't just break minds, it absorbs them, rewrites the self in chapters that bleed into each other. You can feel it even now, how hard it is to hold on to you. The you who entered the gates, who filled out the paperwork, who wore shoes and knew the date. That night you don't sleep. None of you do. Sleep invites it. Instead, you pass around scraps of paper and tell stories you're not sure are yours. The composer sketches a staff and adds a single note, says it was the first sound the asylum made. Dre folds a map of the service tunnels and labels each section, with phrases like the room of backwards, light and door that forgot how to open. Eventually, the silent girl hands you her newest drawing. It's you again, but different. You're sitting at a desk in a grand room, surrounded by books, papers, diagrams. You're older, confident, in control. In the bottom corner, she's written, "You were the doctor once." You stare at the image for a long time, something cold settling in your stomach. You want to deny it, but the memory won't let you. Not exactly a memory, more like a bruise on the inside of your mind, a mark from a life that might have belonged to you once. You see flashes, clean hands writing diagnoses, a clipboard clutched too tightly, a long hallway that was always too quiet. You hear your own voice giving orders. Oh, cold, clinical, careful. You drop the drawing. Everyone sees it, but no one says anything. The composer offers a cup of something warm. You sip it. Bitter. Faintly metallic. Like drinking forgotten thoughts. You ask him, "What if I was one of them?" He shrugs. "Then you still found your way here. So whatever you were, you're not anymore." Dre nods. "No one comes down unless they're falling apart or waking up." That sentence sits heavy on your chest. Waking up. Later, as the others sleep in shifts, never all at once, you stare at the curved ceiling of the tunnel chamber and imagine what lies above you. The wards, the rotation chair, the bath hall, the mirror room, all of them stacked like sediment, layers of memory and madness pressing downward. You're under it all now, beneath the belly of the beast. That's when you hear it. Faint, familiar, humming. Not from the circle, not from the composer, from above, through the stone, through the pipes, the lullaby, slow and patient. The same one you hum. The circle stirs, Dre meets your gaze. It found the breach. The silent girl hands you another drawing. You don't want to look, but you do. It's the circle. Only now you're alone in it. Everyone else is gone, and from the shadows, long arms are reaching in. She writes nothing on the back, she doesn't have to. No one speaks for several minutes, the drawing passes hand to hand, and even those who've seen worse, and you're sure they all have, go quiet. The circle feels smaller somehow, like the walls have leaned in during the night. The ceiling presses lower. The candlelight flickers even though there's no draft. The composer holds the drawing to his chest like a sheet of music he's already memorized but doesn't want to hear, performed. Dre taps his fingers against the floor in a rhythm that doesn't match any song you've heard. Something encoded, a warning maybe. Then the tapping stops. The humming continues. It's louder now, coming from a direction none of you want to acknowledge, the stairwell to the surface. You all know where it leads, back to the west wing, past the therapy rooms, through the administrative hall, and eventually towards C, to your cot, your body, or what used to be yours. Someone, or something, is occupying it now. Dre stands first. "We have to go," he says, already rolling up the map of the lower tunnels. "It's not just curious anymore, it's tracking." The composer nods. "Following the sound. Echoes always want their source." You glance at the silent girl. She hasn't moved, still sketching. Her drawing is nearly finished now, page after page layered into a sort of patchwork mural, a slow-building narrative made of lines and dread. She's piecing something together, but you don't know what yet, or what happens when it's done. The group moves quickly, practiced. They pack candles, folded pages, bits of cloth and string that seem meaningless until you realise they're wards, literal protective charms, sewn by hand, embroidered with spirals and symbols that make your eyes itch when you stare too long. You wonder how many were created out of desperation, how many actually work, and whether you'll be alive long enough to test either theory. The exit is narrow, a shoulder-width crawlspace lined with old brick. You go last. The silent girl insists on staying behind until you're all through. When you ask why, she just tucks the last drawing into your pocket and shakes her head. Her eyes are wide and unreadable, and you realise for the first time that she's afraid, not of the asylum, but of what's following you out of it. You emerge into a disused records office somewhere beneath the east wing. The room is full of filing cabinets, overturned desks, and drawers ripped out like pulled teeth. Dust floats like ash in the beam of Dre's flashlight. You pass rusted carts labelled with patient numbers instead of names. X-rays pinned to warped corkboards. In one corner, a pile of burned folders. You feel the panic start to climb your spine again. "Here," Dre says, pointing to a hatch behind a bookshelf. "We make for the composer's passage. It loops near Ward B. From there we get to the rec room. And from there, well, we'll see. The plan isn't much, but it's something." You move through the hatch and begin to climb. The metal ladder groans under your weight, and as you ascend, the air changes. The smell shifts from mildew to something sharper, something acrid. You push open the trapdoor and enter a hallway you recognise instantly, the corridor behind the nurse's station. You remember walking it during your first night, your skin still cold from the bath, your thoughts too loud for the silence. But something's different now. The hallway is empty and clean, too clean. The grime's gone, the mould. Even the scuffs on the floor are polished away. The walls shine with fresh paint, pale and sterile. like you've stepped into a memory of the asylum rather than the place itself. The composer emerges behind you and freezes. This isn't how it should be. Dre pulls you aside. This looks like when it first opened. The hospital. Back when they still had a choir, still believed in miracles. You glance down the corridor and see a door swinging open slowly, on well-oiled hinges. Inside, lights flicker on. The rec room. But not your rec room. Not the chipped floor tiles and missing piano keys. This room glows with polished wood, velvet curtains, and a grand piano that looks untouched. And someone is sitting at it. You already know who. The composer moves forward as if drawn by gravity. "I never played it like that," he whispers. "I couldn't. The figure at the piano is him, but younger, sharper, smiling in a way you've never seen. His fingers move effortlessly, pouring out the same melody he hums in his sleep. Only this version is full, complete. You realise too late what this is. A loop, the asylum showing you what could have been. Dre yells something behind you, but his voice is drowned out by the music. It swells, deep and rich, and inside it, woven carefully like thread in a funeral shroud, is humming. The composer steps fully into the room, and then vanishes. Gone. No scream, no shadow, just absence. Dre grabs your arm. Don't stop moving. You want to scream his name, pull the composer back, something, but the rec room is already fading, the curtains closing on their own. The door slams shut behind you. You don't dare open it again. The hallway starts to twist. You feel it before you see it. Angles bending, corners becoming curves. The architecture buckles like skin under heat. You run. There's no other choice. You reach a stairwell. Not familiar, but real, physical. You stumble down it. 2 floors, 3, then stop. You're back in Ward C, or it's bones. The walls are scorched, beds overturned. Blood, too dark and too dry, splatters the tiles. Everything's silent, no humming, no patience. And then you hear it. A whisper, not in your ears, but in your spine. You left something behind. You turn your cot. Still perfectly made. Blanket folded. A single item resting on the pillow. A drawing. This one's not by the silent girl. You recognise your own handwriting. It's dated. Tomorrow. The image shows you, sitting in the ward, smiling, but not your smile. The grin has your face now. You step toward the cot before your legs can consult the rest of your body. Maybe it's the familiar feel of the room, warped as it is, like a dream of your first night here, curdled and rotted at the edges. The same tiled floor, the same barred windows, but now everything glows faintly orange, like the sun setting in a place where there's never been sky. You stand at the foot of the bed and stare down at the drawing on the pillow. Your hands won't pick it up. Not yet. You already know too much. You've seen drawings that showed the future. Ones that warned. Ones that remembered for you when your own memory failed. But this one is yours. Signed in your handwriting. Dated tomorrow. And the figure on the bed, it's you. But grinning. The same wide, unnatural curve that you first saw in the mirror room. It's not just the mouth, it's the lack of anything behind it. The eyes are wide and dry. The expression is wrong in the way a doll's face is wrong. It imitates humanity without understanding it. Like it was taught to smile and is showing off what it learned. You pick up the drawing finally. The paper's warm, not in the pleasant way, in the breathing way. Like it's been pressed to a living body, you turn it over. No message, no symbols, it's just a single phrase written in handwriting that isn't quite yours but tries very hard to be. You're already in the dead wing. A chill moves through you like a slow needle. You look around the ward again and suddenly realise what's been bothering you. It's not that it's empty, it's not even that it's wrong. It's that it's dead quiet. No footfalls from nurses, no hums, no crying, not even the rats. Just the faint sound of your own breathing echoing off the walls like a recording being played back in an empty theatre. This place isn't alive, and yet something in it is watching. You back toward the exit, but the door isn't there anymore. Just another wall. You check the other side, same thing. The entire ward is sealed, walled in like a tomb. The windows, which once showed faint moonlight or tree limbs, are now blank, white, like backdrops in a stage play that forgot to paint the world on. Even time feels paused. The air doesn't move, the dust doesn't settle. If you dropped a pin, you're not sure you'd hear it hit the floor. You remember the phrase, dead wing. You heard it once, in passing, whispered by a nurse to an orderly as they pushed a cart with a covered body through a hallway. She called it the wing that forgets. A place where the asylum sent patients who couldn't be cured, but also couldn't be released. Not because of violence, because they stopped. Not physically, but mentally. Like candles burning without a flame. Faces still, but something missing behind the eyes. Patients who grinned too much, who mirrored others too perfectly. You walk slowly now deeper into the ward. Around each corner more beds appear, neat, untouched, each with a folded blanket and a pillow. Some have shoes tucked underneath, slippers aligned with military precision. Some have drawings on the pillows just like yours. All show the same thing, a figure sleeping in the bed and another figure, taller, faceless, standing at the foot watching. Then one of the beds creaks. Not a groan from age, not a wind shift. A genuine movement. You freeze, wait. The silence resumes. And then a voice, whispered, familiar. Your voice saying, "Oh, you're not the first." You turn slowly and see yourself, seated on one of the cots across the room wearing the same smock, same bruises on your wrist. But there's no emotion, just that wide, dry smile. You speak. Who are you? The copy tilts its head. You were me before. I don't understand. You don't have to. The smile stretches a little too wide. You just have to be still. They'll do the rest. You take a step back. Every bed creaks in perfect unison, and from each bed, a version of you begins to sit up. Dozens, some older, some gaunt, some with bandaged eyes or blood-stained mouths, all smiling. Each one blinks, together, the same moment. And then they speak, not aloud but inside your thoughts, layered like a chorus sung through teeth. Lie down, you are tired, let it finish, you turn and run, nowhere to go but forward feels better than standing still. You pass a mirror, maybe. It flashes a moment of light and you see a version of yourself with no mouth screaming silently. You don't look again, you find a corridor, an archway you swear wasn't there before, you take it, and suddenly, light, bright, golden, almost warm. You blink. The hallway gives way to another wing, and you realise this one looks real. Not perked, normal. The grime's back, the smell, the weight. You keep moving, left, right, another left. Eventually you collapse in a side room. An old maintenance closet, dead souls, based on the rusted tools and half-empty mop bucket. You catch your breath. Wait, listen. Nothing follows, for now. On the floor beside the mop is a small square of paper. You already know what it is. A drawing. You reach down, fingers trembling. This one shows a hallway, one you just passed. There's a figure in the centre, you. Behind you, shadows of yourself stretch from every corner, each frozen in different poses. Laughing, crying, sitting, lying down. But in front of you, blocking the exit, is the grin, wider now. Its hands have fingers like crow feathers, long, crooked, and at the bottom, written in block letters in ink that looks like it bled from a pen pressed too hard, "The dead don't leave." You sink to the floor, shaking, mind reeling. You're not in the dead wing. You are the dead wing. And whatever's following you, it doesn't want to kill you. It wants you to lie down, to replace the empty cots, to smile back. You don't get up right away. You sit there in the closet, back against the wall, knees drawn to your chest like a child waiting out a thunderstorm. Though this one's crawling, not crashing, silent and patient with the long fingers and a permanent smile. You keep your eyes on the drawing in your lap, trying to memorize it, trying to read between the lines, as if there's a secret message hidden in the hatching, in the way the shadows fall, in the blankness of your own face. But there's nothing. No riddle, no instruction, just inevitability. The kind of image that doesn't ask questions, it just waits for you to understand. Eventually you rise. You leave the closet behind and move back into the hallway, quieter now, slower. The adrenaline is gone, replaced by a steady, numbing fatigue. Your body feels disconnected, like someone else's memory of having arms and legs. You pass the same hallway again, and sure enough there's the drawing pinned to the wall where none had been a minute ago. The asylum rearranges itself not for logic, but for emphasis. It's repeating the message now, making sure you get it. But here's the thing, you're still walking, still thinking, you haven't smiled back. That must count for something. You drift through the halls like a ghost with stage directions, trying doors at random, looking for any hint of life, Any movement not scripted by your own paranoia. Eventually you stumble into a dimly lit stairwell. The steps lead downward, wrapped in shadows that smell like bleach and mould. You descend anyway, because up doesn't exist here. There's only deeper. At the bottom, a corridor. This one is tiled, narrow, lined with doors that are sealed shut, but not with locks, with wax. Thick gobs of it poured across the cracks, smeared with symbols drawn in soot and something that might once have been read. You approach one. A small plaque reads, Room 9C, Reverberation Holding. You touch the door. Something inside touches back. Not a knock, not a bang, just a thrum, a pressure, like a heartbeat under stone. You back away. That's when you see the rule list. Faded, painted on the wall in precise Victorian script. 10 lines, barely legible in the gloom. You read each one, slowly, your heart sinking with every bullet. Rules of Bedlam's Reverberation Wing. 1. Do not look into reflective surfaces. 2. Do not call out names, even your own. 3. If the door knocks, ignore it. 4. If the floor speaks, speak louder. 5. If you hear music, leave immediately. 6. Do not respond to your thoughts. 7. Do not write what you dream. 8. If you see yourself, walk past. 9. If you meet the nurse, ask no questions. 10. If the spiral turns, so should you. You commit all 10 to memory as best you can. They feel less like rules and more like final instructions, a user's manual for surviving somewhere that should not exist. And now you know something else. Bedlam isn't just a name. It's the core, the central theory, the thing that pulses underneath the structure, no matter what the sign out front says. Every asylum that has ever stood has shared this shape, this breath, this hunger. The buildings come and go, but Bedlam remains, whispered between bricks, passed through trembling hands, drawn by silent girls and grinning reflections. You're not walking through a place, you're walking through a behaviour. You feel it now, the awareness. The asylum is not just housing madness, it is madness. A living taxonomy of unwellness. You're a specimen crawling through its intestine, praying you don't trigger a nervous twitch or a mood swing. You pass another door. This one doesn't have wax, it's slightly open. Of course you go in. It's a single room with a small bed, a candle burning on a stool and something new, sheet music. Dozens of pages scattered on the floor. You kneel and pick one up. It's that same melody, the one the composer hummed. You recognise the crescendo, the unnerving rhythm, and then something else. Scribbled in the margins of the music, he hears us better in song. You drop the page. From behind you, the candle flickers. You turn slowly. In the corner of the room stands a man. He's facing the wall, humming the same tune, low, deliberate, like a prayer with terrible grammar. You step back, try not to breathe, but the man stops humming, lifts his head, and slowly turns. He has no mouth, but the grin is still there, etched into the skin, deep and wide, a carved imitation, a fossil of joy. His eyes roll toward you, black and glistening. You run back into the hallway, past the waxed doors. You don't look into the window slits, you don't say your name, you follow the rules, every single one. At the end of the corridor is a mirror, large, cracked, framed in wood so old it's more splinter than solid. You remember Rule 1, do not look into reflective surfaces, but you're exhausted. Curious, furious, you look anyway, and it's not you, it's her, the silent girl. She stands inside the mirror room, holding a drawing up to the glass. She's showing it to you, you squint, it's the circle, your underground group, but it's empty. Just shadows, their faces erased. Except yours, you're still there. The girl places a hand on the mirror, not against it, into it. Her fingers push through like the glass is water. You reach forward, she hands you the drawing, and disappears. You look down at the page. This time there are no monsters, no spirals, just a hallway, a real one, and a door labelled discharge. You've never seen that door, not once. You turn the drawing over. The exit is still real if you believe it less. You laugh, you cry a little too, because that sentence makes no sense, and perfect sense. It's time to stop believing in the asylum, time to stop feeding it truth. You walk forward, fast, refusing to look at anything. refusing to wonder what's real. And then, there it is, the door. Tall, black, dusty, with one word on it scratched into the paint: discharge. You reach for the handle, and it turns. You half expect the handle to burn or scream or simply vanish into smoke the second you touch it. But it turns with a clean, silent click, the kind of sound you hear on office doors or supply closets. Completely mundane, completely wrong for this place. That only makes it worse. You hesitate for a second, palm still wrapped around the handle, breath shallow. You've seen enough false exits to be suspicious. You've watched doors melt into walls, watched staircases curl back into themselves like intestines, watched hallways reset like some massive architectural shrug. But this door, this one waits, doesn't pulse, doesn't hum, just stands there. Honest. Still. You pull it open. It reveals a hallway so familiar your brain forgets how to breathe for a second. Beige linoleum, fluorescent light, white baseboards, a posted fire escape plan on the wall. There's even a motivational poster. Every day is a new day, above a photo of a daisy struggling out of cracked pavement. This isn't part of the asylum, not in the way the rest has been. It looks like a school, or a DMV, or the back offices of a very bland hospital. You step through cautiously, half expecting the ceiling to peel away or for the floor to drop into darkness. But it doesn't. It just echoes. You glance back. The door is gone. Of course you start walking. There are no windows here. No other doors either. Just hallway after hallway, looping gently leftward, then rightward, then left again. Like a maze trying to pass itself off as a suggestion. The motivational posters continue. Some are even new, personal. You pause at one that shows a black and white drawing of your old bedroom and the caption, "Wherever you go, you're already home." Another shows your face, your real face before the ward, before the mirrors, with the words, "You have been released." Your footsteps echo loudly, but not loudly enough to drown out the sound behind you. Another set of footsteps, lighter, barefoot. You don't turn, you know better. Instead, you pick up the pace. More posters, more surreal affirmations. The body may leave, the mind stays. Closure is a shape, not a place. And finally, discharge complete, return to bed. You stop, just for a second, because up ahead the hallway ends, not in a door, not in a wall, but in curtains. Heavy, theatre-like, drawn halfway open. Behind them is a dim light, the flicker of something close to daylight, though you know better by now. You inch forward and part them. Beyond the curtains is you, sitting in a chair, across from a desk, across from someone in a lab coat who looks eerily like someone you almost remember. Maybe a doctor, maybe a parent, maybe just a figure pulled from your subconscious for this exact moment. They don't speak. Neither do you. It's like watching a stage play about your own life, acted out by people who only read the script once and didn't particularly care for it. You nods slowly, then stands and smiles, not the grin, not that smile, a real one, small, tired, but real. Then they walk away, through a door labelled exit in glowing red letters. You step forward, ready to follow. But as you approach the desk, the room bends, literally. The walls flex like paper in water. The light dims, the doctor's face melts, not in a gory way, in a disinterested way, like paint running on a hot day. The exit sign flickers, then becomes something else, exist. You're no longer standing in the office. You're in a patient room, windowless, fluorescent lit. A nurse stands beside a bed, clipboard in hand. On the bed, you, eyes open, smiling more, laying still. The grin. You turn to run, but the door slams shut. The nurse doesn't move, just stands there, her eyes locked on the grins, like she's in on the joke. You look back. The figure on the bed moves, slow, deliberate, raises a hand, points to your pocket. You reach in, another drawing, this one is half finished. Lines sketched, fast, panicked. A hallway collapsing inward, arrows pointing every which and away, and in the middle, an eye, wide, bloodshot, crying. You flip it over. A single sentence written in ink that shimmers like oil. You can wake up, but he comes too. You stagger backward. The grin on the bed rises now, stretching like it's remembering how. You press against the door, but it won't give. The nurse smiles. Her eyes are white, just white. And then, out of nowhere, a sound. Ripping. The wall to your left tears open like paper. Behind it is the silent girl, not standing, floating. Her dress billows in wind that doesn't exist. She reaches for you. You don't ask questions. You take her hand. The world flips, literally turns upside down. You fall, through floorboards, through drawings, through memories, through a version of yourself screaming behind glass, then stillness. You land in water, not cold, not wet, just water in name. It supports you, floats you, reflects you. You see your face, no grin, no spirals, just your eyes. Tired. But there. The silent girl stands on the surface like it's concrete. She holds up one last drawing. It shows a door. It's labelled not exit, not home, not safe. Just enough. She points. You nod. You swim toward it. As you do, you hear humming, yours, but behind it another hum, lower, following always. You swim, if that's even the right word for this place. The water isn't wet and it isn't cold. It moves beneath you like memory, resisting in certain directions, helping in others. There's no current, but you feel tugged nonetheless, drawn forward by something more emotional than physical, like a song pulling you toward its chorus. The humming is louder now, yours, the lullaby, but there's a new harmony layered under it. A low, dragging hum, slow as molasses, and thick with intention. It doesn't follow you like an echo, it follows you like a decision already made. The door looms ahead. Enough, just that. Not exit, not salvation, not even reality, but you'll take it. You're past hoping for anything pure. All you want now is separation. You want a line drawn between what's you and what's it, even if the line is jagged, temporary, bleeding at the edges. You reach for the handle. It's brass, smooth, and when you touch it, you hear that phrase again, not out loud, but in the bone marrow of your thoughts. You can wake up, but he comes too. You open the door and step through. It feels like blinking too hard. Suddenly you're upright, dry, standing in a stairwell, mundane and familiar. Concrete steps, yellow safety strip at the edge of each tread. A single bare bulb flickering above, buzzing in that ugly fluorescent way that real-life lights always do. You turn to look behind you, but there's no door. Just a blank, grimy wall. You laugh. It's small, tired. A sound more about existence than humour. At least the air smells real. Dust. Cheap scoop soap. A hint of mildew in the corners. Honest decay. You climb, one floor, then another. You reach a landing labelled Level 1, Intake and Release. The door here is real, heavy, industrial. You brace yourself and push through. The reception area is empty, no nurses, no patients. Just a dimly lit waiting room with metal chairs, outdated magazines and a vending machine flashing error on its screen. You walk slowly to the front counter. Behind it a clipboard, blank forms, sign-out sheet. You see your name already filled in, time of release unknown. Below it a line for your signature. You hesitate, pen's already there, waiting. You stare at the line and write your name. The paper ripples under the pressure. You feel something stretch in the air like a rubber band pulled just a fraction too tight. But nothing breaks, no alarms, no sudden loss of gravity. You wait. Still nothing. Then footsteps, soft, cautious. You turn, it's Dre, alive. Covered in dust and scratches, limping slightly, but very much here. He stares at you, then at the clipboard, then back at you again. "Well, I'll be damned," he mutters. He steps forward, glancing behind the counter like he expects something to reach up and grab him. "I saw the composer vanish. I didn't think I'd see anyone else from the circle again." You shake your head. "I saw him too. He played the perfect version of his melody, and then he wasn't there anymore." Dre nods slowly. That's how it gets you. Shows you the version of yourself you almost were. Makes you step inside it, then seals the door. You hand him the clipboard. He reads it, laughs bitterly. "Release form," he says. "I remember filing one of these for someone else, before they decided I'd be more useful in a cot." He stares at the line marked signature, then signs his name without hesitation. The room shifts, only slightly, but enough. The lights stabilize. The vending machine chirps to life. The scent of burnt wiring fades. Something lets go. You both feel it. He breathes out. It's not gone, but something backed off. You both head for the double doors beyond the desk. They open automatically. The air on the other side hits like a slap, real air, crisp, windy, cool enough to raise goosebumps. You stagger a little under it, as if your lungs don't believe what they're tasting. The world outside is plain. A cracked parking lot, a chain-link fence, a stand of trees beyond it, a cloudy sky the colour of old dishwater. But you almost fall to your knees from the beauty of it. Dre laughs under his breath. Never thought I'd see asphalt and not cry. You walk together across the lot. No signs, no nameplate, just the hulking shape of the asylum behind you. A windowless block of stone and steel that looks less like a hospital and more like a storage unit for cursed ideas. At the edge of the lot, the silent girl waits. Of course she does. She holds one last drawing. You already know what it will be. She hands it to you. It's the parking lot. The two of you walking toward her, but drawn from above, and just behind you in the upper corner of the page, watching is the grin. Its arms stretch into the clouds. You flip the page over. 4 words, scrawled like a signature. He walks in daylight now, you freeze, but Dre steps forward and places his hand on your shoulder. I know, he says, but we're not alone anymore. The girl walks ahead. You and Dre follow. None of you speak, because you all feel it. That thrum behind your ribs. A presence, distant but tethered. But you keep walking, because it hasn't smiled through your face yet. Because you've drawn your way out once, and because maybe, just maybe, enough is really enough. You walk away from the asylum step after cautious step, like a man exiting a cave that might suddenly remember it's also a mouth. The gravel crunches under your feet. Each sound feels like a question being answered. Yes, this is real. Yes, you're outside. Yes, the ground still knows you. But with every answer, there's a matching echo. He walks in daylight now. The words stick in your chest like a swallowed tooth. Something foreign lodged inside you, something you know you'll never cough up again. The silent girl walks ahead, her bare feet hardly making a sound on the cracked pavement. Dre limps beside you, occasionally stealing glances at the horizon like he half expects it to wrinkle and vanish. No one speaks. It's not silence out of fear, it's reverence. You've seen too much that spoke without sound, that lied through music, mirrors, even paper. Words are untrustworthy now. Better to move with the hush. Beyond the parking lot, the world unrolls like a memory you thought you'd forgotten. Trees sway in the wind, real wind. You feel it thread through your hair, brush against your ears. There's a texture to it, something honest. A bird calls nearby. One clean, clear note. Your knees buckle slightly at the sound, your body overwhelmed by the simple purity of unscripted nature. It almost breaks you. You cross the chain-link fence through a gap in the metal, the silent girl slipping through first like she already knew it would be open. Maybe she did. Maybe she's always known more than any of you. Maybe she's what's left of the asylum's conscience, wandering it in pieces, leaving breadcrumbs not to escape it, but to soften its bite. Once past the fence, the woods begin. Not the suffocating overgrowth you crashed through before, not the fever dream branches clawing at your skin. These trees feel different. Still watchful, sure, but not hungry. You walk between them carefully, listening to the wind in the leaves, the rhythm of your own breath. Every step away from the asylum feels like peeling yourself out of someone else's body. Dre breaks the silence. He's not gone. You nod. You don't need to ask who he is. He continues, his voice low. Places like that, they don't create things like him, they invite them. And once he's in, he learns the shape of people, of memory, of sound. He'll find another entry. The girl looks back at both of you, then tugs gently at your sleeve. She hands you another drawing. You brace yourself. But this one is different. It's the 3 of you, her, Dre, and you, walking through the forest. Trees, yes. Shadows, sure. But no monster, no spirals, no faceless watchers. Instead, at the centre of the image is a fire. A camp. Light. You smile, small, wary. Then you flip it over. Words again. But not a warning this time. Somewhere out here, stories still belong to people. You read it twice, then tuck it inside your pocket like a promise. After a while, the trees thin. You emerge into a clearing. A rough circular space clearly used before. Charred wood in the centre. Stones arranged in a hasty circle. Old cans and wrappers scattered in the brush. Someone's fire. Long, cold, but real. Human, You all pause. Dre walks to the centre and drops his bag, pulls out matches, a small knife. He kneels to gather twigs, snapping them with practiced ease. "We'll rest here," he says, voice soft but sure. "That thing inside the asylum, it's watching for patterns. We need to unspool the ones we were stuck in." You settle into the grass beside the silent girl. She's already drawing again. The fire crackles into life after a few tries, orange light painting each of your faces in flickers. You watch it rise. It doesn't speak, doesn't hum, doesn't twist into something sinister. It's just fire, honest warmth. It's overwhelming how precious that feels. As night presses in, the stars come out. Not as a backdrop for madness, not as blinking signals from other minds, just as stars. You lie back staring at them, your chest finally softening from the endless coil it's been. The composer used to hum about stars, you remember. Said their songs were too slow for most people to hear. Said they were the only things that didn't change inside the asylum. You miss him. You wonder if some version of him still plays somewhere inside, echoing through an abandoned music room beneath two bright lights. Dre eventually speaks. "We're going to have to warn others." You turn your head toward him. "How?" He shrugs. "People who've seen the edges, they know. They'll listen. It's the ones who think sanity is about control who never believe." The silent girl hands you another drawing. It's a building, but not the asylum. A house, small, quiet, firelight glowing from its windows. There's a group of people inside, you can tell by the silhouettes. One of them looks like you, another like Dre. The girl too. On the back she's written, "It's not an ending, it's an address." You look up at her. She's already watching the sky. Like she's seen this fire before, maybe many times. The night passes slowly. You drift between sleep and wakefulness, but no dreams come. No faces pressed into your eyes. No grin. No whispers. For the first time in what feels like years, your rest is yours. In the morning, dew clings to the grass, birdsong weaves through the forest. You all sit around the fire, not needing to say anything. No need for reassurance, no need for declarations. You're out. Not safe, not finished, but out. And that's more than most get. You rise. It's time to walk again. Time to find the next fire. And leave maps behind you, not signs, not blueprints. Drawings. You reach into your pocket and find a blank page. And the pencil from your first night. Still sharp, still waiting. You begin to draw. The pencil moves on its own. At least that's how it feels. Your hand is steady. More than it has any right to be. But the lines appear like they've been waiting for years, pressing out of you in strokes both quick and gentle. You don't think, you don't plan, you just let it spill, curves, shadows, familiar rooms. A hallway crooked and far too long. A door half open with light leaking from behind it. A pair of shoes tucked under a cot. A spiral on the wall, drawn in what might be chalk or might be bone dust. Your mouth twitches. Not a smile. Not quite. Just recognition. You've seen these things, but now you're naming them in the only language that matters anymore. Images. Dre leans over your shoulder at one point, eyes narrowed. "That's the dead wing, isn't it?" You nod. Keep sketching. You add the reflection room next. Each mirror a little wrong, a little warped, but unmistakably there. Behind one pane, a version of yourself peeking out, just the eyes. Above, scrawled in small, sharp letters, "If you see yourself, walk past." The silent girl watches you quietly. She doesn't draw today. Not because she's stopped, no. Her sketchpad is tucked under her arm like a loaded weapon, but because she's witnessing. Something about that makes your stomach twist. Because she's seen this before, maybe with the composer, maybe with others before him, survivors, or whatever you're becoming now. You finish the page. It's not neat. It's not pretty, but it breathes. You feel it in your fingers, like something finished a sentence that started years ago. You hand it to the girl. She folds it once, places it under a rock beside the burned-out fire pit. A map, a warning, a permission slip for someone who hasn't yet realised they're inside. Then you begin walking again. You don't ask where. It doesn't matter. Directions are illusions when time itself has been shuffled like a deck of dirty cards. You go by instinct, by pulse. You listen to the trees, not for words, but for tone. If they feel watchful, you veer away. If they feel tired, you rest beneath them. You learn to navigate the world like a person learning a language without grammar. Meaning comes in flavours. in tension, in silence. One day you find a road. It's paved, cracked, but solid. Signs line it, real ones, town names, speed limits. You read them slowly, tasting each letter like a miracle. They don't change when you blink, they don't rearrange. The road hums beneath your feet like the world itself is apologizing for everything that came before. That night you reach a farmhouse, small, wooden porch, light in the window. It feels wrong to knock, like you'd be interrupting a story too good for words, but the door opens before you reach it. A woman stands there, older, dressed plainly, eyes sharp. "You three from the woods?" You and Dre nod. The girl simply looks. The woman steps aside. "We've got space." Inside, others, not many, 6, maybe 7. They sit around a table. One strums a guitar, another mends clothes by hand. A third tends to a boiling kettle. They all look up as you enter. They all know, not names, not specifics. Just that look, that weight. The thin sheen behind your eyes that doesn't go away, no matter how clean your skin or warm your meal. You sit. You're handed tea, real tea, not the bitter black syrup from the asylum, not the lukewarm gruel water, just hot tea. You sip. It tastes like human things. A man across the table reaches into a box and pulls out a drawing. Faded, torn at the edges. You recognize it. It's one of hers, the girl's, drawn before she was ever silent. A map of sorts, with the bath hall, the spiral room, the mirror ward. You gasp a little. The man nods. "I found this on a train station bench 6 years ago. Didn't understand it, but I dreamed about it, over and over, and then I woke up there." He doesn't say the name. No one does. The woman who let you in clears a space on the table. "We're not escapees. We're anchors. Every one of us. We stay here, we wait, we draw, we hum, and when the next one makes it out, we catch them." Dre chuckles under his breath. "You're like a halfway house for souls." She grins. "Something like that." Later, they give you paper, they give you ink, they let you sleep, and when you wake, you draw again. You draw the eye in the water, the fake hallway loop, the clipboard that knew your name before you remembered it. You draw the queen and her bone china. You draw the grin, not to memorialize it, but to cage it, because drawings are spells now. And this place, this farmhouse, this flickering space of healing, it needs its wards. The girl sits beside you one night, watching your pencil move. You look over. Ask the question you've been carrying since you met her. "Why me?" She pauses, then lifts her own pencil and writes, "Because you hummed before the asylum did." You stare at that. Let it sink. It means everything and nothing, and yet you feel it lock into place in your ribs like a puzzle piece no one knew was missing. The next morning, you walk the perimeter of the farmhouse, hammer nails into the door frames, hang the drawings on the walls. They flap in the wind like little prayers. Inside each, a moment, a map, a mantra. Not, "Help me," not, "I escaped," but something better, something that might one day lead someone out of their own dark corridor. You draw one last page, not for the world. For you, it's your face. Tired, real, not smiling, not grinning, just awake. You tuck it under your mattress, not to hide it, but to remind yourself. You made it out. You're still in the farmhouse. Days pass, maybe weeks. Maybe time here is more suggestion than rule, but no one really talks about time anymore. What matters is rhythm. The beat of feet on wooden floors, the scrape of pencils against paper, the hiss of a tea kettle, the shift of wind through half-open windows. Everything here moves like breath. Inhale, exhale, draw, hum, rest, repeat. At first, sleep is difficult. Not because you're afraid, well, not just because of that, but because your body's forgotten how to rest without anticipating a scream. It takes time to teach it again, to convince your muscles that the ceiling won't whisper your name, that your own reflection won't scowl when you blink. But slowly your bones unclench, your breath deepens. You sleep longer each night, and when you wake, your heartbeat doesn't already feel like it's been running laps through your chest. You talk more now. Not about what happened in there, not always, but about food, about books, about dreams that don't come with instructions or warnings. Someone has a radio. It crackles in the evenings with faraway stations, mostly static, but sometimes a voice will break through. A preacher, a baseball game, a woman laughing. It's almost too much to bear, the humanity in it, the normalcy. You cry the first time you hear a bad pop song. The drawings continue. Some go on the wall. Others are folded into tiny squares and stuffed into coat pockets for later. Some are left at train stations, on benches, in library books, in the pockets of thrift store jackets. You're part of the network now, not an escapee. An anchor, a breadcrumb dropper. The silent girl smiles more when no one's looking, not because she's healed, but because there's finally space for being broken safely. Sometimes late at night, you still feel it. Him, the grin, walking somewhere, always behind you but never catching up. But the farmhouse is wrapped in lines now, in wards, in drawings, in memory that knows itself. And maybe that's all survival really is, keeping your story louder than the one trying to replace it. You made it out, and you're still making it out, every single day.